My Son is a Reborn Villain Chapter 126 to Chapter 143. Fu Yunrua and Siyu looked at each other and smiled. Siyu went forward, picked up Wen and placed him on his shoulder. Then, he calmly changed the topic. How's the teachers teaching? Are you used to it? This time, the teachers were not from their country, but from another group of teachers. Wen snorted. He was so smart, how could he not be used to it? Grandpa Chef made your favorite braised pork trotters. Eat more to nourish your body. Wen said unhappily, do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Trying to use food to distract him? So that he would forget about not bringing him along when they went out to play? Of course not. You're already a 4-year-old child. Wen emphasized, you're 4 years and 7 months old. Okay. Fu Yunrua saw that they were talking about age, and Wen was sitting on Siyu's shoulder. She was a little nervous. Is your arm okay? It had only been a while, and he could not exert any strength. Wen was not light. Wen obviously knew that his arm had not fully recovered, so he did not dare to move. Put me down. Wen kept looking at Fu Yunrua. Siyu said nonchalantly, it's okay. Let me carry him. Fu Yunrua stretched out her hands. Wen cooperated and opened his arms. His small body leaned in front of Fu Yunrua. Siyu had no choice but to lower his body. Then, Fu Yunrua carried Wen over. After being interrupted, Wen had forgotten to pursue the matter between the two of them. He glanced at Siyu's arm from time to time. When he saw Siyu moving his arm, he could not help but feel nervous. Siyu teased Wen. He found it interesting to see his rich expressions. In the end, Fu Yunrua glared at him, so Siyu stopped teasing Wen. The three of them had a lively dinner. If Fu Yun did not accompany Wen much today, she would accompany Wen all the time at night. Only then was Wen happy and magnanimously let it go. Forget it, he had to go to class and didn't have time to accompany his mother, so he could only let Uncle Yu accompany his mother, otherwise she would be lonely. After coaxing Wen to sleep at night, Fu Yun left the room. Just as she closed the door, she saw Siyu leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. Fu Yun tilted her head in confusion. Siyu glanced at the closed door and smiled at her. Is the child asleep? Fu Yun nodded. Siyu extended his hand towards Fu Yunrua. Let me take you to another place. It's already so late. Fu Yun said. Under his focused and gentle gaze, she could not help but reach out her hand. Their two hands clasped together. Siyu pulled Fu Yunrua and walked out quickly. Fu Yunrua was afraid that he would pull too hard and dislocate her elbow, so she followed his strength and ran forward. They ran all the way up the castle stairs and finally reached the top floor and stood in front of a door. Siyu looked at Fu Yunrua, who was a little out of breath from running. When she recovered, he said to her, close your eyes. Fu Yunrua looked at Siyu and felt that he was being mysterious. However, at this point, she still cooperated and closed her eyes. After seeing her close her eyes, Siyu opened the door and then held Fu Yunrua's hand and walked out carefully. Fu Yunrua's eyes moved. She really wanted to open her eyes, but she did not hear Siyu say that she could open them. Just as she was about to lose control, she heard Siyu say, it's done. Fu Yunrua opened her eyes. At this moment, she was standing in the middle of the castle's rooftop. With her as the center, there was a heart-shaped space. The other places were filled with things that were spitting out beautiful sparks and flowers. The reflection of the galaxy in the sky and the silver sparks on the ground were intertwined and beautiful. She was still looking at them. Siyu knelt in front of her with an exquisite red box in his hand. He faced Fu Yunrua. Miss Fu Yunrua, are you willing to date me with marriage as the prerequisite? Fu Yunrua lowered her head to look at Siyu. When she met his focused and gentle eyes, her cheeks turned slightly red and her heart beat faster. Dating was just dating, but he made it sound like he was proposing. Fu Yunrua took a look and saw that there was a ring in the box. Who gives a ring when asking for a date? Siyu smiled and then picked up the ring. The necklace of the same color under the box glowed faintly. I'll wait for the day when you're willing to marry me. When that time came, this ring would be worn on her finger. Siyu asked again, are you willing to date me? His voice was low and gentle. Fu Yunrua's cheeks turned slightly red. It would be a lie to say that she was not moved. Fu Yunrua thought that there was probably no woman who could resist Siyu's charm. If it was marriage, she would hesitate again and again. She felt that it was too rushed and she had not thought it through. But if it was just dating, she thought that she was willing. In the end, Fu Yunrua nodded slowly under Siyu's gaze. Okay. Siyu smiled. He stood up and said gently to Fu Yunrua, "Let me help you put it on." Fu Yunrua did not refuse. Siyu put the necklace on Fu Yunrua. He was happy but also a little regretful. He was happy that their relationship had taken a big step forward. They were finally boyfriend and girlfriend. Regretfully, he wanted to propose directly. But after thinking about it, he was afraid that it would be too rushed for Fu Yunrua. So, he changed it to dating. Reality proved that he had made the right move. "Please take care of me in the future, girlfriend. Please take care of me, boyfriend." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Then, they enjoyed the charming scenery around them after their relationship changed. The sparks on the ground seemed to have been there for a long time. The starry sky seemed to be just above their heads and they could touch it. In a big city, it was very difficult to see such a night sky. There seemed to be the sound of the waves hitting the shore. Fu Yunrua's heart was very peaceful and comfortable. The two of them enjoyed this atmosphere very much. Suddenly, Fu Yunrua said, "Let the child meet Aunt Yun and Uncle officially?" They were all on the island. Fu Yunrua could not pretend that she did not know. They wanted to see their grandson so much. She could not be so heartless. At least, no matter how powerful they did not want to snatch the child away. Everything was according to her wishes. Just based on this point, Fu Yunrua had a good impression of them. When she saw that they liked Wenwen very much, she had an even better impression of them. It was quite good to put aside those inexplicable concerns. After all, they were not an ordinary couple. They even had a child between them. When Siyu heard this, he smiled at Fu Yunrua. They must be very happy. Although they were preparing to meet, before they officially met, Fu Yunrua still had to talk to Wenwen about this matter and ask for his opinion. So the next day, Fu Yunrua told Wenwen about this matter. Wenwen did not have much of an opinion about this. When he heard Fu Yunrua mention it, he said, "Sure." He did not care. Everything would be based on his mother's wishes. Of course, he would also put his mother's wishes first. If they did not acknowledge his mother, then he would not acknowledge them either. Based on the short contact they had previously, there was nothing that made him dislike them for the time being. It was quite good to have more contact with them. Hence, Fu Yunrua told Siyu about Wenwenrua's agreement. After that, it was up to Siyu Rua to make arrangements. Siyu's parents were obviously very anxious. As soon as they agreed, they immediately made arrangements. If Siyu had not stopped them, they would have really come over immediately. In the end, Siyu set the time at 5:30 p.m. They could have dinner together. At 5 p.m., the butler came in to say that old master and old madam had arrived. Fu Yunrua was a little nervous. The people she was about to meet were not just anyone, but Siyu's parents. How could she not be nervous? However, when she saw them, Fu Yunrua met Xiaxin's kind and affectionate gaze. Fu Yunrua instantly calmed down. "Auntie Yun." Her gaze turned to the tall man beside Auntie Yun and she greeted him. When she saw Siyu's father, Fu Yunrua was surprised because the two of them were so alike. It was as if they had been carved out of the same mold. However, one was the younger version, while the other was the older version. When Fu Yunrua saw Siyu's father, she could already imagine how Siyu would look like in 30 or 40 years. Good child. No matter how anxious Xiaxin and Xijing were to have a grandchild, they did not neglect Fu Yunrua. Both of them gave Fu Yunrua a greeting gift. Xiaxin still held Fu Yunrua's hand and did not let go. "I liked you at first sight. It seems like we are really fated. You can't distance yourself from me just because I'm Siyu's mother." Before she knew Xiaxin's identity, Fu Yunrua and she felt like old friends at first sight. After meeting 2 or 3 times, they treated each other as friends despite their age difference. Fu Yunrua did not know whether to laugh or cry. No. After exchanging greetings, Fu Yunrua brought Wenwen, who was standing beside her, out. This is Wenwen. Xijing and Xie Yunrua immediately looked over. Wenwen Rua was not afraid at all. She shouted in a clear voice, "Grandpa, Grandma." Yes. Xie Yunrua immediately smiled. She was so excited that her hands were trembling. Good child. Then, they expressed their excitement by giving her a greeting gift. She could not refuse. Xijing Rua did not express her feelings as Xie Yunrua did. However, seeing that the child did not reject her, she sat beside Wenwen and tried her best to speak kindly. She asked about her hobbies and classes and praised her from time to time. The two of them really cared about their grandchild. After a while, they forgot about Siyu and Fu Yunrua and surrounded Wenwen. Fu Yunrua and Siyu Rua sat at the side. Siyu Rua reached out and held Fu Yunrua's hand. She smiled at her as if to say, "Look, I'm not lying, right?" Fu Yunrua smiled in her heart. She was completely at ease now. She finally did not have to worry that Wenwen would be wronged. There was a lot of laughter during dinner. At first, Fu Yunrua was still reserved. She thought that they were particular about not talking while eating and was afraid that she would be rude. In the end, her worries were completely unnecessary. Xijing Rua and Xie Yunrua surrounded Wenwen. They kept putting food on Wenwen's plate and looked kindly at Wenwen. They were happier than if they were eating delicacies themselves. In the end, Wenwen Rua touched his round belly and sighed sadly. What a sweet worry. He touched his chubby little face and felt that it was going to become rounder again. Ever since Siyu Rua's parents saw that Fu Yunrua and her son had accepted them, they came to report to them every day and asked about their well-being. They could not wait to make up for the past few years that they did not accompany them. They took on the task of taking care of the child. Fu Yunrua and Siyu Rua spent more time with each other. The two of them often sneaked out, and their relationship quickly warmed up. Wenwen Rua was surrounded by the two new grandparents. Just coaxing them took up a lot of his time, so he did not pay attention to Fu Yunrua and Siyu Rua's movements. When Wenwen Rua started coaxing people, there was no one he could not coax. Not long after, Xijing Rua and Xie Yunrua became the darling of their hearts. Even Siyu Rua took a step back. Siyu Rua and Fu Yunrua did not mind. As parents, they could only feel proud that their child was able to gain the favor of the elders. At this moment, Fu Yunrua finally experienced the feeling of being in love. Although it was Siyu Rua's first time in a relationship and did not have much experience, she did not know where he learned some experience from. Although it was very old-fashioned, it was very useful. At least, it made her happy. But she seemed to have forgotten something? She did not remember at the moment. It was probably not something important. Right? Fu Yunrua met Wenwen's condemning gaze and felt very guilty. She smiled fawningly and said, "Wenwen, your uncle you and I are dating." Wenwen complained, "Were you not going to tell me if I didn't find out?" What was the matter? Wenwen suddenly realized that his mother and uncle you were occasionally clingy. He found it strange. Wasn't his mother still awkward with uncle you before? Why did she suddenly become shy? Did she do something bad behind his back? In the end, Wenwen was able to find out the truth just by probing. His mother and Siyu were dating. It had been a few days and he wasn't the first to know. Wenwen was so angry that he couldn't be coaxed. Fu Yunrua hurriedly coaxed him. "I'm sorry, baby. Mommy didn't mean to not tell you." She was going to tell him, but wasn't it delayed because she had to meet his grandparents? She was only thinking about that matter and forgot for a moment. Wenwen still felt very wronged. He felt that it must be because he didn't let his mother and Siyu get close to each other and didn't let them talk. Therefore, his mother thought that he would oppose them and wanted to hide it from him. Was he such an unreasonable person? Mommy swears that I won't hide anything from you in the future. Baby, please forgive me this time, okay? Baby, you are the most sensible and magnanimous baby in the world. Mommy loves you the most. Baby, it's Mommy's fault. Forgive Mommy, okay? Fu Yunrua finally gritted her teeth. If you can't accept it, then I'll break up with him immediately. Siyu, who was originally watching from the side, was speechless. Hey, hey. Was he so casual? Wenwen saw Siyu's black face and pouted. Hey, he was his mother's most important baby. Therefore, Wenwen said generously, there's no need to break up. It's not my fault. I forgive you. I knew it. It must be Uncle Yu who led you astray. Wenwen pulled a long face and said seriously, it's okay to fall in love, but you can't learn bad things from him. Fu Yunrua nodded, yes, I definitely won't learn it. See you. Stupid brat. Fu Yun finally coaxed Wenwen to sleep before she heaved a sigh of relief. Siyu saw that the little rascal was not around, so he hugged Fu Yun from behind. He rested his chin on Fu Yun's shoulder and said pitifully, you want to break up with me? Fu Yunrua hurriedly said, I was just coaxing Wenwen. Of course, if the child really did not agree, then what was there to talk about? I don't care. You hurt me. You have to compensate me. Fu Yunrua's heart was tired. After coaxing the little one, she still had to coax the big one. She said helplessly, then what do you want? Like this? Siyu lifted Fu Yunrua's chin and tilted it slightly. He tilted his head and lowered it. His voice disappeared between his lips and teeth. Fu Yunrua interacted more with Siyu's parents and understood their character. He no longer had any scruples and could peacefully fall in love with Siyu. Ever since they kissed, their feelings for each other deepened and the two of them became even more intimate. The island was much more lively than before. After obtaining Fu Yunrua's consent, Xianxia asked some of the children in the family who were closer to Wenwen to accompany her. Wenwen needed playmates, and the children of the same age in the Xi family basically grew up together. This way, their relationship would be even deeper. Wenwen's background was a little special, so they prepared to let Wenwen get to know a few children of the same age. After they were familiar with each other, they would then play with the others. Although it was not explicitly said, Fu Yunrua could see that Siyu and his parents wanted to nurture Wenwen. Fu Yunrua saw that Wenwen did not reject it, so she did not interfere. She knew that Wenwen was a smart child and had his own opinions. Therefore, she would ask for his opinion when it came to her own matters. Therefore, Xiaojian picked two children of the same age from the main family and brought them over. It could be said that they were worried sick about Wenwen. Children did not know good and evil. They might accept or reject children who suddenly appeared. They could not bear to see Wenwen suffer any grievances, so they took one step at a time. This time, the children who came were close to the side branches of the two families. They both had children of the same age. Because their close elders were by their side, the children did not feel afraid. Instead, they looked around curiously. After Wenwen knew that he was about to have playmates, he placed great importance on it and prepared gifts early as a greeting gift. The two children were older than Wenwen. One was 5 years old, and the other was 6 years old. They were fair and chubby, and their facial features were very handsome. Fu Yunrua could not help but take a few more glances at the child called Si Tang. This child looked like Siyu. More accurately, he looked like a member of the Si family. The other child also had some characteristics of a member of the Si family. Fu Yunrua looked at Wenwen. Only Wenwen had completely inherited her looks and did not look like a member of the Si family at all. Perhaps it was because he spent so much time with Siyu that he unconsciously had some of his aura. Of course, some small actions were 100% similar. The children were very happy when they met. Si Tang and Si Zhongxing also expressed their friendliness to Wenwen. Soon, Wenwen brought the two freshly baked brothers to play. They had never been to this island before, but Wenwen had already played before. Naturally, she knew how to bring them to play. Although the three children ran far away, they were still within the sight of the adults, so there was nothing to worry about. In the beginning, they were still playing very harmoniously. However, not long after, Wenwen and Si Tang had a conflict. This was because Wenwen heard Si Zhongxing ask Si Tang, will fifth uncle still adopt him as his son? Siyu was ranked fifth in their generation. Although he was a direct descendant and also the head of the family, in the family, they still addressed each other according to seniority. Si Tang said with certainty, definitely. Actually, Si Tang did not know if the main family would adopt him, but the uncle and aunt who raised him said that he would definitely be adopted. He had always believed it without a doubt. As for why he had such a big chance, it was because he was an orphan. His parents died in an accident when he was still a baby, so he was raised by his uncle and aunt. To be precise, he was raised by the family, and his uncle and aunt existed as guardians. In recent years, there were occasional rumors in the family that the main family was about to choose a child from the branch family to adopt. As an orphan and a child who looked like a member of the Si family, Si Tang had a big chance. When Wen heard what they said, she instantly exploded. That's my father, not yours. He won't adopt a child. He already had a biological son, so why did he still want to adopt one? Did he despise him? Wen exploded in anger, feeling offended. Si Tang said confidently, "Fifth uncle will definitely adopt me. In the future, he will be my father. Since everyone said so, then it must be true. He would also be someone who had a father in the future." You're talking nonsense. I'm not. Fifth uncle is my father. Mine. He's mine. Mine. The voices of the two children, who were about the same age, were getting louder and louder. Siyu and Fuyun heard the commotion and walked over. What's wrong? Fuyun looked at Wen and felt that it was strange. Weren't they having fun just now? Why did they suddenly quarrel? As soon as Wen saw Siyu, she ran over and asked angrily, "Do you have any other children other than me?" Siyu was speechless. Siyu stroked Wen's angry little head and smoothed her hair. "I only have one child, and that's you. Did you hear that?" Wen instantly looked proudly at the child who had shrunk his neck. "My father only has one child, and that's me. That's him. Fifth uncle." Si Tang shrunk his neck and looked timidly at Siyu. He didn't dare to argue in front of the adults, so his eyes turned red from being wronged. Fuyun looked around and asked, "What's going on?" She looked at Siyu. What was going on? Wen grabbed Fuyun. "Mom." He told Fuyun what they had said and then said, "He actually wants to adopt a child. Wasn't having him enough?" Humph. Wen felt wronged. Why did he still want to adopt a child? Wouldn't that mean that not only would he have to give away his father, but he would also give away his mother? Fuyun looked at Siyu with a questioning gaze. She believed that Siyu had a plan in mind. If he really wanted to adopt a child, there must be a reason. Siyu wasn't in a hurry to explain. Instead, he asked Wen happily, "Who did you just tell them that I was to you?" "My father." "Who?" "Father." Siyu responded with a ripple at the end. When Wen realized what he had just said, his little face instantly turned as red as a monkey's butt. His little eyes wandered for a long time, then he said righteously, "Yes, it's my father." So what? Although Wen was also very surprised that he had blurted it out, since he had already said it once, it was natural for him to say it a second or third time. Wen shouted crisply, "Daddy." Siyu smiled and touched Wen's face. Good boy. Siyu finally heard Wen call him daddy. It was really not easy. At this moment, he felt that the burden on his shoulders had become much heavier, and he felt the weight of responsibility. Si Tang looked at Wen and then at Siyu. His expression of envy was overflowing. Would fifth uncle still adopt him when he had a biological son? Siyu touched Wen's soft hair and only retracted his hand before he was about to explode. His gaze turned to the other two children. However, he did not say anything in front of the children. He asked someone to send the two children to their elders. Then, he explained to Fuyun and Wen that he had no intention of adopting other children. As for why such a rumor had spread, perhaps it was because his mother had jokingly mentioned it before, and it had been remembered by people with ulterior motives. Siyu told them about Si Tang's background and directly said that everything for the child was paid for by the family. He did not have to worry about food or clothing, and he also had a biological uncle who treated him well and was his guardian. This child did not affect the interests of his uncle's small family. Instead, they had to treat him better in order to gain more benefits. Thus, he lived very well at home. Siyu also had children of his own, so naturally, he would not adopt them. Even if he did not, he would consider it 10 years later. He did not feel that he had extra love to share with other children. Just one alone was enough to give him a headache. If there was another one, he would have to forgive him. When one heard about Si Tang's background, he understood him very well. After all, he was also an orphan in his previous life. However, understanding was one thing. He wasn't so generous as to share his parents with him. He only wanted to treat him better in the future. Fu Yunrua also felt that it was quite pitiful for this child to have no parents at such a young age. However, he had his family to support him and his biological uncle was around. It was not Siyu's turn to take care of him. Therefore, she did not overstep her boundaries and express her opinion. After clearing up the misunderstanding and smoothing out Wenwen's feathers, Siyu went to deal with the rumor. He was not going to argue with the child, but the elders still had to give him a warning. At the very least, such rumors could not continue, and they could not speak without thinking in front of the child and instill some unrealistic ideas. The next day, Si Tang and Si Zhongxing behaved like children who had done something wrong. They became much more reserved in front of Wenwen. After being admonished by their parents, they were no longer as lively. It was Wenwen who took the initiative to play with her two brothers. After all, they were all children. After a short while, they were playing together happily. Si Tang already knew that what his aunt had said in the past was wrong. She even apologized to him solemnly. Si Tang was very disappointed, but he still forgave his aunt. As for Wenwen, he could not bring himself to hate her. This younger brother was too good and too cute. It made him subconsciously want to dote on him. Now that he had such a fair, chubby, and soft younger brother, Si Tang felt that it was fine if he was not adopted. It was fine if he could stay by his younger brother's side. Fu Yunrua and the other two stayed on the island for a month. In the end, Si Jing and Xie Zhiyun were reluctant to part with them, so they embarked on their journey back to China. After returning to China, Fu Yunrua became even busier. She was busy distributing gifts and local specialties to her friends and relatives. At the same time, she also had to pick up her almost stagnant career. She posted some photos of the scenery on the forum and shared her schedule with her fans for nearly a month. Then, she set a time to do a live broadcast. Fu Yunrua browsed the news on the internet. The popularity of the three of them had already died down. New entertainment news. Fu Yunrua started her live broadcast again after more than a month. Her popularity did not decrease at all. Instead, it became even more lively. Many of them were fans who had snuck in because of Wenwen and Siyu. Fu Yunrua picked a few questions and explained that she had disappeared for so long to bring Wenwen out to relax. She did not answer too many questions. She pretended not to see some of the questions that involved personal matters. Then, she officially started her live broadcast. Fu Yunrua quickly found the feeling of doing a live broadcast. Gradually, the audience stopped asking her about things other than the content of her live broadcast. There were fewer comments on the bullet screen. At this moment, most of the people who were talking were her fans of many years. She extended the duration of her live broadcast and only ended it after 3 hours. Siyu immediately went forward to pass her a glass of water. "Thank you for your hard work." "Thank you." After returning, Fu Yunrua also personally told the people close to her that she was dating Siyu. Siyu openly appeared by Fu Yunrua's side as Fu Yunrua's boyfriend. Fu Yunrua asked curiously, "Don't you have to work?" She already knew his identity. She also knew that he would occasionally disappear. When he was not filming, he would spend most of his time dealing with work. She felt that as the tyrant of tyrants, managing such a big business, it was right for him to be so busy all day. How could he have so much time to date? However, on second thought, this world was not scientific in the first place. She could not look at it with the eyes of ordinary people. Work is important, but my wife is more important. Siyu raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Why? You don't believe that your boyfriend can balance it out?" Fu Yunrua rolled her eyes. She had worried about him for nothing. He was always by her side. Even if he did not get tired of it, she would get tired of him sooner or later. Fu Yunrua did not accompany him all the time. She had too many things to do. However, when she looked up occasionally, she would see Siyu by her side. This feeling was very beautiful and very happy. However, there was still something troubling. The moment Fu Yunrua returned, she found out about something that was not good for her. Feng Shuirua had already been released. She had been changed to an execution outside the prison because she was pregnant. Counting the days, the female lead of the second novel should be arriving around this time. She could only sigh at the female lead's strength. Even so, the butterfly could not change her birth. Fu Yunrua thought about it. It should be the night of the charity gala. She also had a thought in her heart. She knew that the female lead of the original novel would not go offline so easily. However, Fu Yunrua was fearless now. Feng Shuirua was the mother and daughter's biggest backer. The Fu family was not controlled by them and changed to the surname Feng. Fu Zonghong was still alive and well. Furthermore, he and Feng wanting to divorce. The Fu family had nothing to do with them. As for the Chang family, Wenwen was not an ant that could be easily crushed now. He had a backer. The Chang family could not touch him. Fu Yunrua lamented that the male lead, Chang Zhuyu, was deeply in love with Feng Shuirua. He ignored his family's objections and insisted on being responsible for Feng Shuirua. He wanted to marry Feng Shuirua. If there was anyone in this world who still treated Feng Shuirua the same way as before, it was probably Chang Zhuyu. Furthermore, she was pregnant with his child now. However, because of the Chang family's firm opposition, Chang Zhuyu finally moved out with Feng Shuirua. For some reason, they actually moved to Fu Yunrua's neighborhood. When Fu Yunrua heard this news, she felt as if a fishbone was stuck in her throat. The only consolation was that their villas were located in the north and south respectively. They were quite far apart from each other, so they wouldn't run into each other often. Siyu already knew about this, but he did not do anything and did not tell Fu Yunrua. He did not want to affect her mood. It was rare for her to be so happy. Why would he want to ruin it? After returning, Fu Yunrua and Wenwenrua moved back to their own homes and did not stay in Siyu's house anymore. Even if she was told about this, it did not change her mind. Siyu had no choice but to move in with them and live in the villa next door. The adults did not tell Wenwen about these troublesome matters. Since they lived in the same neighborhood, there would be a day when they would bump into each other. When Wenwen saw Feng Shuirua appear in his line of sight, he thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. Wasn't this woman in jail? Why was she here? Feng Shuirua was wearing a loose white dress. When she saw Fu Yunrua and Wenwen, she subconsciously touched her belly. She was already 4 months pregnant. When she put her hand on her belly, one could see the curve of her belly. Feng Shuirua supported herself with one hand and touched her belly with the other. She walked towards Fu Yunrua and Feng Shuirua. Chang Zhuyu, who was at the side, supported Feng Shuirua nervously and asked her to slow down. Fu Yunrua held Wenwen's hand and took 2 steps back. Stop. Fu Yunrua told her not to get so close to her and to pay attention to the distance. People sympathized with the weak. If she used the child in her belly as an excuse, she would not be able to explain herself. When the time came, people would forget what she had done and accuse her of being unforgiving. She did not even let the child off. She said bluntly, "Please stay away from us." Feng Shuirua saw that she could not get close to them and could only stop. Brother Chang saw that I was feeling unwell and brought me out to relax. I didn't expect to see you. After being imprisoned for a period of time, her face was much paler and thinner than before. Of course, it could also be because of her pregnancy. Feng Shuirua lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, "What happened in the past? I was wrong. I let you down. So I'll accept whatever you want to do to me. But I beg you, can you let my mother off?" Fu Yunrua frowned. Her face was full of displeasure. It was really strange. She did not know what she was talking about. She did not do anything to them. Was she thinking too much? Chang Zhuyu could not stand Fu Yunrua's petty and unforgiving manner at all. He frowned and said, "Shuir has already apologized to you. Can't you forgive her?" Fu Yunrua did not even have the desire to speak. Siyu said, "Look for me if you are unhappy. My Rua does not want to see you." Chang Zhuyu looked at Siyu coldly. However, before he could say anything, the community's security guards noticed the commotion. The first thing they did when they walked over was to ask Fu Yunrua and her family out of concern. Miss Fu, did they make things difficult for you? The Chong family was a prominent family in the capital. If they wanted to live in this community, they naturally had their ways. Although the security guards had opinions, they did not have the right to speak. The security guards liked Fu Yunrua's family very much. Naturally, they would side with them. Therefore, they privately emphasized that they had to keep an eye on Feng Shuirua and pay attention to her movements. Feng Shuirua's expression did not change. She had experienced the fickleness of human nature during this period of time. She could accept this cold treatment silently. On the other hand, Chang Zhuo's heart ached when he saw Feng Shuirua swallow her anger. He hated himself for being powerless. He could not even protect his own woman. Fu Yunrua thanked the security guards for their concern and expressed that she was fine. Only then did they leave. However, they still patrolled the area. If anything happened, they could come over immediately. Wen did not expect that woman to come. He stared straight at Feng Shuirua's stomach. As long as he thought about the fact that the unborn child in her stomach was that disgusting woman, he could not control the malice in his heart. If she had a miscarriage. Feng Shuirua felt a sense of malice. She instinctively looked over and met a pair of black eyes. Her heart stopped and she instinctively clutched her stomach. Siyu also saw Wen's expression. His eyes darkened. Then, as if nothing had happened, he held Fu Yunrua and Wen's hands. Let's go back. Fu Yun could not help but complain, these people are really too much. Even the sun doesn't have as much presence as them. Siyu said, don't worry, they won't be free for long. Why are they still coming to this neighborhood? Are the other residents willing? Fu Yun found it strange. After all, the people who lived here were all famous people. Why would they be willing to let Feng Shui live here? The Chong family still has some influence in the capital. Fu Yun knew in her heart, but she still felt very unhappy. These people were really like cockroaches that could not be killed. They were too disgusting. However, Fu Yun did not want to move in order to avoid them. After all, she liked this place very much and was used to it. Even if she moved away, she might not be able to find a suitable place. Fu Yun complained to Siyu, but she quickly threw it to the back of her mind. She lowered her head and noticed Wen's unusual silence. She asked, Wen? What's wrong? Are you scared? Wen looked up and gave Fu Yun a cute smile. No. Fu Yun felt that it was a little strange. She was about to ask, but her attention was quickly diverted by something else. There was a person standing at the door. When he saw them walking back, he walked towards them. Fu Yun recognized that this was her fan, Lin Ji, who lived in the same neighborhood. Lin Ji saw Fu Yun and Wen and finally smiled. Long time no see. Ever since Wen was injured and hospitalized, Fu Yun had not returned to this neighborhood. Those who could visit her were all very close to her. Lin Ji had also applied to visit her previously, but he was rejected at that time, so he had been waiting for Fu Yun and the rest to come back. Long time no see. Fu Yun did not know that Lin Ji had gone to the hospital to visit her but was rejected. She was also quite happy to see Lin Ji. They just exchanged a few pleasantries and asked about each other's recent situation. They did not have much to talk about, so they just stood there and chatted awkwardly. Siyu reached out to hold her hand. Lin Ji noticed it immediately. You guys. Fu Yunrua lowered her head and looked at the hand that she was holding. Then, she said generously, we are together. Siyu's lips curled up in delight. Oh. Well, it's pretty good. Congratulations. Lin Ji was stunned for a moment. Then, he concealed his disappointment and sincerely congratulated her. Thank you. Don't tell anyone about this for the time being. Fu Yunrua exhorted. She didn't want to be on the hot search list again after finally coming down. Lin Ji nodded and promised that he wouldn't tell anyone. After that, Lin Ji took his leave. Fu Yun and the others returned to the house. When Fu Yun saw that Siyu was still holding her hand, she said, all right, he's gone. Can you let go of me now? Siyu said calmly, it's right and proper for me to hold my girlfriend's hand. Fu Yunrua glanced at him. Forget it. Don't think that I don't know what he's thinking. Isn't she just a normal friend? Even if he likes her, it's just a fan's love for their idol. Is there a need to be jealous? Wen rolled her eyes and gloated. Mom has so many fans. They all want to be my stepfather. You can only dream about it, Siyu said confidently. Even in terms of fans, no one could compare to him. He was Rua's #1 fan. His username was also at the top of the donation list. Siyu looked at Fuyan Rua and decided to hide his identity well. He couldn't let her know about this account. Siyu saw that Fuyan Rua wasn't in a good mood because of the incident with Feng Shui Rua, so he suggested, "Do you want to stay at the flower garden for a few days?" Uncle Gua preferred to stay at the flower garden. On the day that they came back, Fuyan Rua stayed at the flower garden for a night and went back to the flower garden. Fuyan Rua didn't spend much time with Uncle Gua recently, so she felt bad. She also knew that Uncle Gua must miss Wen a lot, so she nodded and said, "That's good too." It was just that there were many people coming and going at the flower garden. Whether it was Wen or herself, their popularity was much higher than before. According to Sister Wang and the others, there were fans checking in at the flower garden almost every day. There were also reporters waiting for them. If they were discovered, it would be troublesome. Siyu said that he would take care of everything. Fuyan Rua trusted Siyu very much, so she nodded. The three of them didn't delay. They quickly packed their luggage and went to the flower garden. After the expansion of the flower garden, there were more places to stay. There was a room specially reserved for them. When Uncle Gua saw that Fuyan Rua and the others were going to stay here, he said that they were troublesome, but he was actually quite happy in his heart. His entire aura softened, and he even indulged Wen to run around him. Fuyan Rua was also happy when she saw how happy the grandfather and grandson pair were. However, when she thought about how Wen didn't go to school at the age where she should have gone to school, she felt that it wasn't too good. Is it really okay if Wen doesn't go to kindergarten? Siyu said, "Our family has specialized kindergartens and primary schools. If you don't mind, you can let Wen study there and make friends normally." Other than the Si family, the rest of the people in their school were the children of family friends like the Meng family. Ordinary people couldn't enter. Friendship during childhood was the purest and most precious. The Si family already had enough. They only needed to develop step by step, so they paid more attention to family harmony. The elders were all concerned about the closeness of the next generation, so they basically grew up together. Of course, there might be small groups, but there was no deep hatred between the children. If they were taught well, it would also promote healthy competition. After all, schools were the least likely place to fight and scheme. There were countless pairs of eyes watching the development of the next generation. Fuyan Rua asked carefully and hesitated when she heard that the school was in his hometown. Then, wouldn't she have to be separated from Wen? She wouldn't have to go to his hometown, right? Siyu didn't force Fuyan Rua to make a decision immediately. He quickly changed the topic. "I will be busy with work for a period of time starting tomorrow." Fuyan Rua heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly nodded. "Go ahead." It was better to go to work. If he accompanied her all day and didn't do anything, she was going to suspect that he was going to go bankrupt. "Don't worry, I can take good care of myself." "Yes, you have to take good care of yourself too." Siyu nodded with a smile. His gaze turned to Wen, who was squatting at the side and playing with a small shovel. "How many days should I take care of Wen?" Fuyan Rua and Wen raised their heads and looked over at the same time. "Children can play anywhere. It's tiring for you to take care of them all day. Why don't I take care of them for a few days? You can also gather with your friends." Siyu was very considerate. Even a mother needed private space. No matter how cute the children were, they would feel tired if they spent all their time with the children. Wen was very curious about how Siyu worked. He raised a small shovel and said loudly, "I want to go. Won't I disturb you?" Fuyan Rua hesitated. Siyu said with certainty, "No." Thus, Wen carried her small school bag as she wished and followed Siyu to work. There were many businesses under the Si family's name in the capital. Even outsiders didn't know about them. Siyu brought Wen to an office building with more than 100 floors in the center of the capital. This office building belonged to the C family. There were different companies on each floor. Many of them seemed unrelated, but they were actually one of the C family's businesses. Siyu had an exclusive office on one floor. Usually, he would come here to work when necessary. However, most of the time, he would hold remote meetings at home. Siyu asked someone to move a chair to the side for Wen to sit. Then, he asked someone to report on official business. He had a special group of secretaries who could help him handle some of the less important work, except for those that required his personal approval. Wen listened to the reports of the elite men and women taking turns. He listened attentively. Wen used to run a company himself, so he knew a little about these reports. If there was a difference, the biggest one was probably the numbers. He used tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of units, while the others used hundreds of millions. However, the money wasn't in front of him. It was just a number, so Wen didn't feel much. However, when he heard the next report, he instantly pricked up his ears. Ever since the Chang family's investment failed some time ago, they have become more cautious. Wen listened carefully to their conversation. Only then did he realize that Siyu had been dealing with the Chang family for a long time. However, their methods were gradual and they were slowly weakening the Chang family's power. After all, the Chang family was considered a powerful family in the country. If they were suddenly bankrupted, it would cause economic turmoil and attract the attention of the country. Wen finally understood the benefits of having a powerful backer. He was already thinking about how to destroy the Chang family. However, because he couldn't form a three-headed body and was under the watchful eyes of the adults, he couldn't do anything. Just as he was feeling depressed, Siyu gave him a huge surprise. Wen's eyes sparkled as he looked at Siyu. Suddenly, he felt very at ease. He and his mother were protected by someone, so they wouldn't be bullied easily. After the secretaries finished their report, only Siyu and Wen were left in the office. Siyu looked at Wen, patted his head, and asked, "How much did you hear?" If he answered that he had heard it clearly, it wouldn't be logical. After all, he was still a baby. Thus, he shook his head and said innocently, "I'm not sure." Siyu chuckled and didn't harp on the question. Instead, he pinched Wen's soft cheeks. He didn't care if Wen understood or not and said, "The Chang family's power is deeply rooted. Previously, they were lucky and couldn't be touched. Instead, they were attacked. However, I've tested them a few months ago. Their luck is about to run out." In the past, Siyu instinctively avoided their sharp edges. His intuition told him that going against them wouldn't end well. Thus, even though he didn't like them at first, he avoided them as much as he could. Later, he met Ruoro and found out about Wen's background. Thus, he investigated thoroughly. He discovered that the Chang family's luck was so good that it was strange. Furthermore, he found out that anyone who went against the Chang family and feng shui didn't have a good ending. Even if they invested in projects that Siyu thought were full of loopholes and would do more harm than good, they would still make a lot of money. After that, Siyu saw them provoking Ruoro again and again. She was still angry. How could she let her child's mother be bullied? Thus, he gave the Chang family some trouble. Siyu didn't expect them to step into the trap so easily and even succeed in trapping them. Siyu was surprised that he did not suffer any backlash. Siyu realized that their luck might have run out, so he took advantage of the situation and played a few more games. However, they still had a foundation. If it were an ordinary family, they would have long been bankrupted. His methods only caused great damage to the Chang family. After recuperating for a period of time, they would slowly recover. "I'm not a good person, and I don't expect you to be a pure good person." After all, Wen would be in his position in the future. If he was too weak and kind, it would not be a good thing. Wen looked at Siyu. Her big round eyes seemed to be shocked as they widened even more. Was it okay to teach the child like this? Which parent would want their child to become a bad person? Although Wen was not a good person and had done bad things before, his mother wanted him to be a good child. He had always tried his best to be a good child. However, Siyu did not expect him to be a good person? However, even if we are to be bad, we have to be honest. Siyu was addicted to pinching Wen's face. He hadn't pinched her little face in a long time. He really missed it. Wen finally reacted and hurriedly covered her face. Her face was red from the pinching. However, how were they going to be honest? Wen's heart was full of doubts. However, Siyu did not answer him. Instead, he brought him along and let him see how he dealt with the Chong family. If Fu Yun did not know what the father and son were doing, she would have thought that Wen would stay with Siyu for at most 2 days before returning. However, day after day passed. Wen left punctually with Siyu every day and returned at night. Fu Yun was speechless. She suddenly felt a little jealous. Wen only clung to his father and not her now that he had a father. After autumn, winter came quickly. In the blink of an eye, they changed into thick winter clothes. Not long after, the first snow fell in the capital. After that, it snowed a few times and the ground was covered with a thick layer of snow. When Wen saw the white snow fluttering in the air, he could not help but feel nostalgic. Then, he excitedly wanted to go out and play in the snow. Fu Yun wrapped Wen into a ball before letting him out to play in the courtyard. However, he could only play for 20 minutes. Fu Yun sighed. Unknowingly, they had been in the capital for almost a year. Time had passed so quickly. However, in retrospect, many things had happened in the past year. They had gained a foothold in the capital. Wen had become a well-known celebrity and had also acknowledged her biological father. She also had a boyfriend. Xianxia ran over in the heavy snow. He complained to Fu Yun that Wen was so popular during the summer holidays. He should have taken on some advertisement endorsements and participated in some activities. In the end, he walked the path of his old father. Other than filming, he basically did not participate in any other activities. Both the adult and the child were so willful. If they had done their business properly, they would have been well-known international superstars all over the world. This year, they were invited to participate in the Spring Festival Gala. He tried his best to persuade them but could not get them to agree. Xianxia grumbled about this for a long time. This time, he came over because Wen's Xianxia movie was about to be screened. Although he was only a small supporting role and played the role of the male lead when he was young, because of his popularity, the director specially increased the duration of the movie. During the publicity, he also brought his popularity into the movie. The Xianxia movie would be released during the new year. The director wanted Wen to participate in the publicity in the capital. However, Fu Yun and Siyu rejected him. It was one thing for children to like acting. He only needed to act in the movie. There was no need for him to participate in other messy things. Xianxia did not insist. He changed the topic and asked if they wanted to film a public service announcement. Public service announcements were different from others. They were official in nature. Although they would not be paid, it was good for their reputation. After Fu Yun understood, she did not have any objections. Xianxia was inclined to let Wen participate. Seeing that Fu Yun did not object to this and that Wen and Siyu had agreed, he happily went to make the arrangements. However, he did not leave immediately. Instead, he stayed at the Fu family home and watched them live a leisurely and peaceful life. His slightly impetuous heart also calmed down. Then, he smiled and built a snowman with Wen. Seeing that it was about time, Fu Yun called Wen into the house. Wen ran into the house with a red face. Fu Yun gave him a cup of hot water and touched his face and hands to make sure that he was not cold. Siyu was also staying at the Fu family home. Besides going to the villa next door to sleep at night, he spent most of his time at the Fu family home. Xianxia followed him into the house and started talking to Siyu. They talked about retiring from the industry. This was Siyu's plan a long time ago. He was supposed to retire from the industry last year, but because of Wen, he delayed it. But now, it was time to retire from the industry. Acting was Siyu's hobby. For this hobby, he had been in the entertainment industry for more than 10 years. However, this was also because it did not hinder him from inheriting the family business. Otherwise, his family would not be so carefree. In the past, it could be said that he used all his free time outside of work to act. In the future, his focus would be on his family and business, and he would not be able to care about the entertainment industry. In the future, Yuan Xian would not take on any work for Siyu. Yuan Xian was old, and besides taking care of Wen, he would not take on any newcomers. The rest of his energy would be spent on managing the company's brokerage department. Fu Yun confirmed with Siyu, "Are you really going to retire from the entertainment industry?" In the past, when she saw that he did not do anything, she thought that Siyu was going to give up on this idea. "Yes, I did not intend to stay in the industry for the rest of my life." Fu Yun nodded and respected his decision. Wen saw that they had already planned for next year and felt regretful. He wanted to work with Daddy. They had only worked together once, and he wanted to do it many times. Wen could not help but feel a little disappointed. Fu Yun saw that Wen was unhappy, so she changed the topic. "It's almost the new year. How do we plan to celebrate the new year?" This year was the first new year they had spent in the village. Fu Yun had originally planned to bring Wen back to the village to celebrate the new year. However, the village was busy now. As there were big investors investing in projects there, and with the support of the government, it was very efficient. Now, the village was replanning and building villas. In the village, there would be major projects and renovations in the next few years. There were construction sites everywhere, and it was not convenient to go back for the new year. Hence, Uncle May and Auntie May did not want them to come back until the village was built. Uncle Guo was not prepared to go back, so they decided to spend the new year in the capital. When Wen heard that it was the new year, he liked it the most. In the past, he had followed the older children in the village to visit every family for New Year's greetings and to ask for red packets and snacks. If he did not return to the village this year, there would not be such fun. Thinking of this, Wen felt a little melancholic. He felt that his younger brothers had almost forgotten about him. After all, they were all children. Who could remember their childhood friends so clearly? They were playful and forgetful, unlike him, Sai. However, with Mommy, it did not matter where they went. Moreover, there were new family members this year. Wen glanced at Siyu. Siyu said, "Let's celebrate the new year at home." His hometown still had the custom of celebrating the new year. His parents asked Siyu in private, hoping that Fu Yun and Wen would go back for the new year so that they could officially introduce their identities. However, Siyu rejected them. He had already figured out Fu Yun's character. No matter what, he could not be too impatient. He had to do it step by step. Otherwise, it would cause her to dislike him. He had just let her meet his parents and accept them this year. This progress was just right. If he let her go home with him, it would not be good. In the future, if Fu Yun agreed to marry him, she would be the rightful mistress. At that time, it would be most appropriate for her to meet the rest of the family. When Fu Yun heard that Siyu was so considerate, she felt embarrassed. However, she could not ask him to bring Wen back to celebrate the new year with her grandparents. She only said, "If Uncle and Auntie Yun are free, you can come over to celebrate the new year with us." Siyu smiled and nodded. They will be very happy. Although they had discussed it, New Year's Day had just passed and there was still some time before the official new year. Fu Yun was also a little busy. Although her career was not as good as Siyu's and could not even compare to Wen's, it had been steadily rising. She had also made a lot of money this year. Not long ago, she had just paid off her loan. Now, Tian was planning every day how to expand her studio. Everything was developing for the better. Fu Yun thought that since it was her first year in the capital, she had to make it lively. She even asked Wen to plan how to spend the new year this year. Wen was very interested in this. She wrote down her plans excitedly every day. When she suddenly remembered one day, she added to her notebook and made sure to do everything she could think of. Fu Yun was busy for a period of time. Suddenly, she realized that Feng Shui and Chang Zhuyu, who lived here, only appeared once. After that, they did not appear in front of Fu Yun again. She felt that it was strange. This was not their style. Fu Yun was already prepared for them to appear in front of her from time to time. However, it was a good thing that they did not appear. It was not that Feng Shui did not want to look for Fu Yun and the others. It was that she could not even protect herself. The Chang family's company had been besieged recently. Whenever there was a problem with the company, it would be exposed. Usually, companies would have these problems. If they were not targeted or not exposed, as long as they did not go overboard, the higher-ups would turn a blind eye. However, the higher-ups suddenly started a strict investigation. With so many subsidiaries and holding companies in trouble, if they still did not know that they were being targeted, then they were really stupid. When it rains, it pours. Just as they were busy dealing with it, many projects were snatched away. It was not exactly snatched. It was just that they had prepared for a long time and were confident that they would win the projects. However, in the end, they missed the opportunity. There were also many big customers and suppliers who terminated their contracts. The huge Chang family was in a huge crisis. Chang Zhiyu left early and returned late every day. He looked tired and had dark circles under his eyes. It was obvious that he had not rested well for a long time. In the beginning, he could still insist on coming back every day to see Feng Shui and talk to her. Later on, he came back every 2 to 3 days. Later on, he just stayed in the office. At first, Feng Shui did not take the Chang family's small problems to heart. She thought that it would be solved just like last time. In Feng Shui's heart, the Chang clan was an unshakable giant. They were even more powerful than the Fu clan. She only had Chang Zhiyu left. She had to have him under her control. However, he did not expect that the situation this time was more serious than before. It was so serious that he could go bankrupt at any time. Feng Shui turned off the TV with an ugly expression. She touched her bulging belly. She was already more than 7 months pregnant. She wanted to be the mistress of the Chang family. She couldn't let herself give birth to another daughter without knowing the truth. However, if the Chang family were to go bankrupt, then all of her plans would be for naught. It couldn't be. How could an aristocratic family like the Chang family fall just like that? Feng Shui thought a lot of things at that moment. She even thought that the Chang family was setting up a trap to create an atmosphere of imminent bankruptcy so that she would want to retreat and abandon Chang Zhiyu. Because of this, Chang Zhiyu saw clearly that she despised the poor and loved the rich, and did not love him at all. This made him completely disappointed in her. If Feng Shui thought to herself, she would never be fooled. She would never give up the identity of Madame Chang that was already in her hands. The door opened with a click. Chang Zhiyu walked in with a tired face. He must have not rested well for a few days. The suit he was wearing was wrinkled. Feng Shui walked over with one hand on her waist and the other hand on her belly. She looked worried when she saw Chang Zhiyu. Brother Chang. When Chang Zhiyu saw Feng Shui, he hurried over to support her. Why did you come out? Brother Chang, I was worried about you. Feng Shui followed Chang Zhiyu and walked back slowly. She frowned and said, You haven't been home for a long time. I couldn't sleep well at night. I dreamed that something happened to you. Chang Zhiyu hurriedly said gently, I'm fine. I'm just a little busy with the company. Feng Shui sat down on the sofa with his help. You have to take good care of yourself. The child and I are very worried about you. Chang Zhiyu rubbed Feng Shui's belly and agreed. Feng Shui held Chang Zhiyu's hand and asked with concern, Brother Chang, tell me honestly. Is the company in a bad situation? I saw on the news that. Shui, don't worry. This is only temporary. I won't let you and your daughter suffer. I still have some savings. It may not be of much help, but it's still a small token of my appreciation. Chang Zhiyu's voice became even gentler. How can I take your money? Don't worry. It will be over soon. Feng Shui saw that he was determined not to take it. She frowned and said, If only I were a good match for you. Then I could help you. As Feng Shui spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. She bit her lip and said, Brother Chang, why don't you listen to Uncle and Auntie's arrangement and marry a lady of equal social status? I don't care, as long as you are fine. Before Feng Shui could finish her sentence, Chang Zhiyu hugged her with a heartbroken expression. Don't talk nonsense. I only want you. Those people are just adding insult to injury. When the Chang family recovers, none of them will be able to escape. Anger flashed in Chang Zhiyu's eyes. He had not been having a good time recently. He had been running around looking for partners for the company. Bad news about the company had spread and caused panic. The company's stock price had fallen continuously, and tens of billions of yuan had disappeared. Many people who had offended the Chang family and looked down on them had come to step on them. Chang Zhuyu had not thought much of it before. The business world was like a battlefield. They were not as powerful as the Chang family, so they could only accept it when the Chang family took the cake. He did not expect that those small companies who had once trembled in fear under the Chang family would dare to step on them. The ants that the Chang family had once looked down on had been twisted into a rope and bitten the Chang family until it hurt. There were also those who had jumped ship when the Chang family was in trouble. Chang Zhuyu made a mental note of them. When this crisis was over, he would deal with them one by one. They had probably forgotten the consequences of offending the Chang family. When this is over, we will hold a wedding of the century and let the whole world know that you are the woman that I, Chang Zhuyu, cherish. Fang Shui smiled through her tears. Of course I believe in you, brother Chang. Suddenly, she seemed to have made up her mind. Brother Chang, let's get married. Chang Zhuyu was stunned. He stared blankly at Fang Shui. Fang Shui held his hand and looked at Chang Zhuyu with bright eyes. It's okay even if the Chang family can't get over this. I'm willing to suffer with you. I love you. Whether we are rich or poor, I want to be with you. This was the first time in many years that Chang Zhuyu had heard such a straightforward confession from Fang Shui. His breathing quickened. After a long while, he hugged Fang Shui excitedly. Did I hear wrongly? Shui, you have finally agreed to marry me. I'm so happy. Shui, say that again. Can you say it again? Chang Zhuyu hugged Fang Shui and twirled her around excitedly. Fang Shuerua cried out in surprise and angrily punched him twice. She hugged him with both of her hands and refused to let go, looking completely dependent on him. Shui, can you say that again? Fang Shui's face turned red. She turned her head and said, forget it if you didn't hear it. I heard it. I can't forget it. Chang Zhuyu placed Fang Shui on the sofa and half-knelt in front of Fang Shui. Shui, you finally agreed to marry me. I'm so happy. Ever since they got engaged, Chang Zhuyu had always wanted to get married as soon as possible. He had proposed several times but was rejected because Shui wanted to stand at the top of the entertainment industry before she agreed to marry him. Chang Zhuyu had tried his best to pave the way for Shui. Just as Shui was about to reach the top, her skyscraper collapsed in just a year. She went from being loved by everyone to being hated by everyone. He wanted to seek justice for Shui, but he couldn't even protect himself. Chang Zhuyu had always been a proud son of God. He had never suffered so much. In the past 2 years, everything went wrong for Chang Zhuyu. He couldn't even protect the woman he loved the most. Chang Zhuyu hated himself for being so helpless. He didn't have the face to propose to Shui. He couldn't help but wonder if Shui would dislike him if she saw him like this. But now, Shui actually agreed. Was he dreaming? Shui, you said you agreed to marry me, didn't you? Fang Shui couldn't help but laugh when she saw how eager he was. Yes, I agreed. Let's get married right away. Chang Zhuyu held Fang Shui's hand tightly. Fang Shui nodded. However, she suddenly thought of something and her smile gradually faded. Fang Shuerua hesitated and said, Uncle and Auntie. She bit her lip and said gloomily, the daughter-in-law they want is not me. My reputation is a stain. Forget it. I can't be a burden to you. Fang Shui forced a smile. You deserve better. Shui, don't belittle yourself. In my heart, you're the best. Chang Zhuyu said affectionately. Don't worry. They're just temporarily confused. My parents have been good to you, haven't they? They'll get over it. I won't let you suffer. Chang Zhuyu stroked Fang Shuerua's belly. Moreover, you're carrying the Chang family's golden grandson. Shui, why don't you come home with me? My parents will definitely treat you very well for the sake of the child. Fang Shui wanted to use the child in her belly to make Chang Zhuyu and his parents accept her. Chang Zhuyu was the only son in the family. How could he not like children? Previously, she had thought wrongly and thought that she would definitely be wronged if she lived in the Chang family with her current identity. That was why she thought of a way to live alone. Now that she thought about it, if she was pregnant with the next generation of the Chang family and made her presence known in front of them, even if they had a grudge against her, for the sake of the child in her belly, they would not dare to go too far with her. Unfortunately, she had secretly checked at the hospital. It was a girl. It would be better if it was a boy. Feng Shui hesitated. But I'm not the rightful wife. Chang Zhiyu suddenly had an idea. Shuer, let's get married first. Huh? After we get married, you'll be the rightful wife of the Chang family. Chang Zhiyu thought he had come up with a good idea, so he looked at Feng Shui expectantly. Is that okay? Yes. It'll be hard on you. Chang Zhiyu was full of guilt. I can't give you a grand wedding right away. Feng Shui covered his lips with her hand and shook her head gently. She smiled shyly but blissfully. I'm fine. Their eyes met, full of love. In the end, they secretly went to get married. Then, Chang Zhiyu brought Feng Shui back to the Chang family and announced that Feng Shui was his rightful wife. Chang Zhiyu's parents were furious. They had gone through so much trouble to find an only daughter who was not as rich as the Chang family. She had promised to help the Chang family through this difficult time after the marriage. But their son was a burden to them. The Chang family was in a mess. In the end, Feng Shui got her wish and moved into the Chang family. This family belonged to Chang Zhiyu in the future. And Feng Shui was the person he cherished the most, so the servants of the Chang family did not dare to treat Feng Shui coldly. Hence, Feng Shui's life was quite smooth. Fu Yun did not know about the Chang family's affairs. She had seen the Chang family on the news several times and even heard rumors that the Chang family was going bankrupt. At first, she did not dare to believe it. That was a domineering CEO with the male lead halo. How could he go bankrupt? But some of her friends had told her about this in private, and it was not groundless. She had heard that many aristocratic families were eyeing the Chang family covetously, trying to get a share of the profits. There were no eternal friends in aristocratic families, only eternal benefits. If there was anyone to blame, it was the Chang family's fault for being too domineering. They did not even realize that they had offended others. Now, there was a rich financial group that directly attacked the Chang family from all directions. The aristocratic families who were watching from the sidelines were shocked. They did not know when the Chang family had offended such a person. Hence, when the Chang family was in trouble, no aristocratic family was willing to take the risk to lend a helping hand. It could only be said that everyone kicks a man who is down. The Chang family's bankruptcy was within everyone's expectations, but it was beyond their expectations that they would be defeated so early. The Chang family's funds were cut off, they were unable to repay their huge debts, and there were a lot of lawsuits. When Father Chang heard the report, his vision turned black. He fell backward and fell into darkness amidst the screams of the people around him. The Chang family was finished. Before the new year, the Chang family could only declare bankruptcy. All the assets under their name were liquidated to repay their huge debts. When Chang Zhiyu saw that even the old house that his family had lived in for many years was being sealed and prepared for auction, he heard all sorts of sharp cries. His ears were ringing and his ears were ringing. Feng Shui had just gained a foothold in the Chang family when such an unforeseen event happened. She was completely stunned. How could this be? How could such a powerful aristocratic family like the Chang family fall? How was this possible? Mother Chang saw Feng Shui standing at the side in a daze in a white dress. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She pounced on Feng Shui, wanting to tear her apart. It's all your fault. You're a jinx. You've caused so much trouble for the Chang family. What sins have we committed all these years? Why do you have to harm us? It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Feng Shui instinctively covered her face when she saw the sharp nails coming at her. Are you satisfied now that you've caused so much trouble for the Chang family? Why don't you go and die, jinx? It's not me. It's not. Feng Shui wanted to avoid Mother Chang's attack, but she couldn't. Everyone else was in a state of panic. They stood at the side and watched coldly. Chang Zhuyu was the first to come back to his senses. He went forward to protect Feng Shui. He pushed Mother Chang away and roared, "Enough!" The veins on his neck bulged. Mother Chang was stunned. She was stunned for a long time. Then, she fell to the ground and cried, "What sins have I committed?" Feng Shui leaned against Chang Zhuyu. Her thoughts were in a mess. She still felt that everything in front of her was unreal. The news that the Chang family was in a financial crisis was true. The Chang family owed a lot of debts. Even if they liquidated all the assets under their name, it wouldn't be enough to pay them back. She had jumped into the fire pit. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her stomach. Feng Shui felt that her lower body was wet. She held her stomach and said, "It hurts." Chang Zhuyu hugged Feng Shui and asked anxiously, "Shui'er, what's wrong? Where does it hurt?" "My stomach." Feng Shui looked like she was in pain. Chang Zhuyu hurriedly carried Feng Shui and rushed out. "I'll take you to the hospital right now." Perhaps it was because the Chang family had suffered losses in their investments this year. Although they had recovered for the time being, the Chang family could no longer bear the pressure of being besieged. Of course, the bigger reason was that the forces besieging the Chang family did not give them a chance to breathe. They were closely linked, and the Chang family could not even compromise. They could only brace themselves and face the battle, ultimately suffering a crushing defeat. This was a very beautiful business war. Everyone felt sorry for the Chang family's fall, but they were also shocked by the other party's power and vigilant. The upheaval caused by the change in the upper echelons did not affect the ordinary circle. Although the employees under the Chang family were very uneasy, they were not worried that they would lose their jobs after the new year. The Chang family had already been acquired. For the time being, the upper echelons would undergo a major change, but the employees at the bottom would not undergo any major changes. At most, they would be injected with new blood. When Fu Yun saw the news report on the Chang family, she was stunned. Not long ago, there were rumors that the Chang family was going bankrupt. Not long after, they had declared bankruptcy. Fu Yun saw the overwhelming news on the internet and television. It even made it to the top searches several times. Everyone felt sorry that such a large aristocratic family had fallen just like that. However, because of this, most people did not say anything unpleasant. At most, they sighed that the affairs of the world were impermanent. It was already pitiful enough for a proud son of heaven to fall into the dust. They should be more polite with their words. "See, you said to Fu Yun, you don't have to worry about them bothering you in the future?" "You did it?" Fu Yun reacted and asked in surprise. "See, you said, it's not just me. The Chang family has offended many people over the years. They could only blame the Chang family for being too merciless in the past. They frequently attacked Wangpa of Tianliang and caused the destruction of many families. They were too overbearing and did not leave any leeway. Who knew how many people hated the Chang family? Otherwise, Siyu would not have been able to topple the Chang family so quickly. Those people had put in a lot of effort, and some wanted to take advantage of the situation. She had never asked Siyu about his work, so she did not know what he had been doing. She also did not know much about the business world. After all, she was not in this circle. After realizing Siyu's true power, Fu Yun felt that only Siyu had the power to bankrupt the Chang family. Fu Yun felt all kinds of emotions. When she was at the peak of her anger, she thought. However, she knew what she was capable of. Without the mind of a business genius, how could she shake up a behemoth by herself? That was why she told herself to forget the past of the original body, to not care about them, and to live a new future. Now that the Chang family had fallen, Feng Shuerua and her mother had been pushed out of the circle. Living the life of an ordinary person was the biggest punishment for them. The grievances that the original body had suffered, they had returned it tenfold, 100-fold. Fu Yun's mood suddenly brightened. Everything was over. Siyu could not help but laugh when he saw that Fu Yun had only asked a simple question and did not intend to make a fuss about it. Okay, he had worried too much in the past. He knew it. With such an outstanding man like him, how could she be so blind as to fall for that guy from the Chang family? Siyu was in a good mood, so he told Fu Yun about the situation. The Fu family did not do anything this time. They did not participate. The Fu family did not do anything, whether it was to lend a helping hand or to add insult to injury. They just watched coldly from the sidelines. Fu Zonghong's health report was done at his private hospital, so Siyu naturally knew everything. With his current health condition, it was good enough that he could protect the Fu family. He did not have any extra energy to expand his territory. Siyu knew that Fu Yun had a grudge against the Fu family, so he did not say much. He only told her the situation objectively. Fu Yun's expression was indifferent. She did not have any other thoughts. There was nothing in the Fu family that made her reluctant to part with. He only heard about how the Chong family had been defeated. After satisfying his curiosity, he waved his hand nonchalantly. I don't know about these things. Do as you see fit. It's fine as long as you didn't lose out. When Siyu heard this, he smiled confidently and said, I will never lose out. Then Siyu told Fu Yun another piece of news. Feng Shui gave birth to a daughter. Both mother and daughter are safe. Fu Yun lamented that the female lead was lucky. There was a video on the internet. Feng Shui gave birth prematurely because she was beaten by her mother-in-law. In the end, she still gave birth. Fu Yun sighed for a while. Yes, we don't have to pay attention to them in the future. They are not from the same world. Even though she did not know if the plot of the second movie would return 20 years later, the plot had already collapsed. It would not return to its original state, right? If Feng Shui and the Chong family were tied together, their future would be uncertain. Forget it. She could not be bothered to think about it. Just as she had always said, each of them would live their own lives. Siyu and Wenwen also came to listen to the conversation between father and son behind Fu Yun's back. Siyu asked Wenwen, how is it? What are your thoughts? Wenwen was still immersed in the excitement that his father was not only good at acting, but also business. When he heard Siyu's question, he immediately straightened his back. He straightened his chubby little face and said seriously, if you're a man, you should compete face to face. Using some despicable means that can't be brought to the table will only lower your level. Siyu patted Wenwen's head as if he was a promising child. Siyu had attacked the Chong family from all sides. He had used an overt scheme to tell everyone that he was going to mess with them. Siyu did not expect the Chong family to be so weak. They knew that someone was targeting them, but they still jumped into the trap one by one. He really wondered how the Chong family had risen in the past. How could they support such a big family with such a low IQ? Wenwen could not help but say, you are so powerful. No matter how hard he tried in his previous life, the most he could do was create an economic crisis. He could not shake the Chong and Feng families at all. He did not expect Siyu to take down the Chong family in one move. Can I also become so powerful in the future? Of course. You are Siyu's son. Siyu patted Wenwen's head. Strike where it hurts. Once you make a move, you have to kill with one blow. You can't give the other party a chance to turn things around. Wenwen nodded. He thought to himself, why would I need to save up for revenge? I won without doing anything. Wenwen had been taught by Siyu for 3 to 4 months before he finally understood what Siyu wanted to teach him. Siyu must have sensed that he wanted to do bad things, so he wanted to correct his character. Wenwen had no one to teach him before, so his character was formed by many years of experience. He had seen too much evil and knew that he was not a good person. After being reborn, he had grown up in a honeypot. His character had changed a lot, but he still had the imprint of his previous life. When he met the people from his previous life, he would occasionally have thoughts of doing evil things. When Siyu saw the other side of his character, Wenwen felt very uneasy. He was afraid that Siyu would be disappointed in him and think that he was not the good child that Siyu wanted, so Siyu would not love him anymore. However, Siyu spent more energy teaching him slowly. Wenwen always felt that Siyu liked him because he was his son and not because of him. However, he felt that Siyu's love for him was not inferior to his mother's. Wenwen could not help but think that this was what people often said about a father's love being as heavy as a mountain. He smiled blissfully. Fu Yun heard Wenwen's laughter and turned to look at him with a smile on his face. What are you dreaming of? Why are you so happy? At this moment, Wenwen was lying on Siyu's shoulder and sleeping soundly. No one knew what he was dreaming of, but his little mouth was wide open and he was smiling happily. It was rare that the weather was good, so they disguised themselves and brought the child out to play. It was very tiring for the child to play crazily. They had just finished dinner when it was past 7 in the evening and they were sleepy and drowsy. Siyu carried the child like an ordinary family of 3 and walked leisurely among the lively crowd. Fu Yun said, "Shall we go back?" They had run up and down with the child today, so they did not have time to rest. No matter how strong they were, they would be tired if they carried the child and walked. Furthermore, if Fu Yun still remembered, Siyu's hands would not be able to carry heavy objects for long periods of time no matter how well he recovered. Siyu met Fu Yunrua's concerned gaze and did not reject her good intentions. Fu Yunrua made a phone call and then walked to the side of the road. Soon, a car stopped in front of them. After placing Wenwen in the child safety chair, Fu Yun was about to get into the car when Siyu grabbed her hand. Fu Yun turned around in confusion. Siyu smiled. "Get the chauffeur and the bodyguard to send the child back. We haven't spent time alone in a long time." Siyu sighed in her heart. This was the difference between having a child and not having one. Especially when the child was still young, it was rare for adults to spend time with each other. This little third wheel was too much of a presence. Fu Yunrua hesitated for a moment and then nodded. Although they seemed to be traveling as a family of 3, there were many bodyguards in the dark to prevent any unexpected situations. Fu Yunrua was not worried. Hence, after Siyu made the request, Fu Yunrua thought that they did not have much time alone. After all, he was her boyfriend and she had to coax him, so she quickly agreed. The two of them walked on the streets, and there was a lot of noise around them. It was full of fireworks. It was almost the end of the year, and the streets already had a festive atmosphere. There were window decorations on the windows of the shops, and festive flower pots were placed at the door. Siyu reached out and held Fu Yunrua's hand. Their fingers intertwined. Fu Yunrua looked up at Siyu. Her face was a little hot, but she still held his hand back. The places where their palms touched transmitted warmth to each other. It was as if the two of them were blending together and getting closer to each other. Fu Yunrua looked at the lively fireworks and smiled. "It's almost the new year. We should prepare for the new year." Siyu responded softly and couldn't help but smile. Preparing for the new year was a novel and exciting experience. The next day, Fu Yunrua and Siyu brought their children to buy New Year goods. Buying new clothes was an indispensable part of the New Year's new atmosphere. Siyu's clothes were all custom-made, but he preferred Fu Yunrua to personally choose clothes for him in the shop. It was a pity that they couldn't openly shop in the big shopping malls. That would easily expose themselves. They could only go to high-end shops that paid attention to the privacy of their customers. This was the trouble of being a celebrity. At this time, many companies had started to have their New Year's break. People who went up north had returned to their hometown to reunite with their families. Even their flower beds had started to close 3 days ago. However, the capital was still very lively. There were all kinds of New Year goods in the neighborhood, but they still went out to shop and experience the lively atmosphere. Although Fu Yunrua didn't have any relatives in the capital, she already knew many relatives and friends. There were a lot of New Year goods to prepare. Fu Yunrua had already bought a batch 2 days ago and sent them back to the village by express delivery. This time, the people she wanted to buy were her relatives and friends in the capital. Although they weren't blood-related relatives, she still wanted to visit Uncle Gua's students. There were also some friends who had helped her a lot. The family of 3 went out empty-handed every day and came back with big and small bags. The 3 of them were in high spirits every day, as if they didn't know fatigue. Fu Yunrua followed the customs in the village and bought couplets, snacks, and drinks for the guests. After that, they cleaned the house together. Although they could hire someone to clean the house, doing it themselves seemed to give them a greater sense of accomplishment. With the people closest to them by their side, they didn't feel tired as they chatted and laughed with each other. Fu Yunrua looked at Wenwen, who surrounded her and Siyu every day. Her face was red and her eyes were sparkling. He was even happier than last year. Of course, it could also be that he was a year older and more sensible, so he was more lively. It could also be that his parents were by his side. Amidst the busy preparations, they welcomed the new year. On New Year's Eve, Fu Yunrua followed the village's customs. After lunch, she took out the grapefruit leaves that she had found early in the fridge and put them in the water to boil bath water. According to the traditional customs, the grapefruit leaves could wash away the bad luck on people and bring good luck to the new year. Fu Yunrua felt that Wen and Siyu's injuries were too unlucky. It was a good time to wash them away and have good luck next year. In addition, they also started to prepare for the New Year's Eve dinner tonight, as well as putting up couplets and window flowers. As it was the new year, Xianxia went home for the holidays. There were only 4 people at home. Wen had already changed into new clothes. She was wearing a bright red children's Tang-style costume, which made Wen's little face flush. She looked like a little fairy who had walked out of a New Year painting. Uncle Gua was also wearing a Tang-style costume, which made him look hale and hearty, as if he were 10 years younger. Uncle Gua had his hands behind his back as he instructed Siyu to put up the couplets. Wen stepped on a small stool and spread the stickers on the table. She pasted paste on one side, then picked it up with both hands, jumped off the small stool, and ran to the French windows. She slapped the stickers on the glass and smoothed them out with her chubby little hands. Wen took a few steps back and admired her masterpiece for a moment before nodding in satisfaction. It slanted. A little more to the right. Wen looked over and saw Grandpa Gua instructing his father to put up the couplets by the door. He ran over and said excitedly, "Let me help." Fu Yunrua was preparing the New Year's Eve dinner in the kitchen. She listened to the commotion outside, and the smile on her face never faded. God had given her this fortuitous encounter and did not treat her unfairly. Wen made her feel a sense of belonging to this world, and Siyu filled her with anticipation for the future. Recently, Fu Yunrua rarely thought about the other world. Her memories of the past 20 years seemed to be separated by fog and gauze, so hazy that she could no longer see clearly. Sometimes, she even felt that she was the real Fu Yunrua. The so-called transmigration, the so-called other world, was just a golden millet dream of hers. Whether it was the butterfly dream Zhuangzhou or the butterfly dream Zhuangzhou, Fu Yunrua had already accepted it calmly and hoped that everyone could live happily. Siyu and Wen were scourges. After they finished pasting the couplets, they went to the kitchen to help. However, Wen quickly shouted out of the kitchen and followed Uncle Gua to walk around outside. Siyu helped Fu Yunrua as they chatted. Although there were only 4 of them, the New Year's Eve dinner was very sumptuous. Chicken, duck, and fish were indispensable. Fu Yunrua made steamed dumplings with pork and cabbage stuffing, 4 happiness meatballs, and braised carp. Siyu looked at the delicious dishes Fu Yunrua made. The rich aroma filled the air, and he felt that he was full of appetite at this moment. Thus, he could not help but use his chopsticks to pick up a piece of meat. It smelled so good, so delicious. Of course, Fu Yunrua's culinary skills were not as exquisite and delicious as those made by professional chefs. However, there was a sense of home in her cooking. Although it was ordinary, it made people yearn for it day and night. If Siyu had a choice, he would prefer to eat such dishes every day. Of course, his heart ached for Fu Yunrua. How could he bear to let her work so hard every day? It was enough for him to eat such dishes once in a while. Fu Yunrua turned around and saw Siyu eating secretly. Fu Yunrua. A certain celebrity's image collapsed. Siyu noticed Fu Yunrua's gaze and coughed lightly. However, he still did not put down his chopsticks. Instead, he said righteously, "Let me try the taste for you." Fu Yunrua asked, "How is it?" "It's the most delicious dish in the world." Fu Yunrua laughed. "How can it be so good?" This was too exaggerated. "Try it if you don't believe me." Siyu picked up a small piece of meat and placed it next to Fu Yunrua's lips. Fu Yunrua looked at Siyu Rua. Finally, under his urging, she opened her mouth and took a bite. Siyu smiled. "Isn't it?" Then, he picked up another piece and put it in his mouth. Indeed, his culinary skills seemed to have improved, but at most, it was above average. Fu Yunrua's cheeks turned slightly red. Then, she said, "No matter how delicious it is, you can't eat it secretly. There are so many. I'll help you try the taste." When the sky darkened, the New Year's Eve dinner was ready. Plates of delicious food were served on the table. Fu Yunrua made a total of 12 dishes, including meat and vegetables. As there were old and young people, Siyu poured drinks for everyone. After the four of them sat down, they were not in a hurry to eat. Instead, they made a speech. As the oldest, Uncle Guo was the first to speak. The deepest and most ordinary wish of the elderly was for their children and grandchildren to be safe and healthy. Uncle Guo did not have any children and had dedicated his life to his beloved Lani. Even when he was old, he still had a child like Fu Yunrua and a precious grandchild who allowed him to enjoy the joy of a family reunion. Then, Siyu, Fu Yunrua, and finally, Wenwen. Wenwen held a drink with both hands. His little face was filled with excitement. He looked at Fu Yunrua and Siyu Rua before looking at Grandfather Gua. He felt that he was the happiest baby at this moment. In the past, he felt very blessed to have his mother by his side. Now that he had Siyu, his life was even more complete. Wenwen said loudly, "In the future, we have to celebrate like this every year as a family." The adults laughed. "Come, cheers. Happy New Year. Happy New Year." After the lively reunion dinner, there were many programs. The neighborhood was not like the countryside. At this time, people would go door to door to give New Year's greetings. Especially the children, they would swarm everywhere. However, it was still very lively. The television was playing the Spring Festival Gala program, and then the adults gave out red packets. Fu Yunrua and Siyu also received red packets. Uncle Gui gave one each. When Siyu gave Wenwen a red packet, he also gave Fu Yunrua one. When Fu Yunrua looked over, he said with a smile, "The little baby has a red packet. The big baby also has a red packet." It was obvious who the big baby was referring to. Fu Yunrua's face flushed red. In the end, she accepted the red packet. Recently, Siyu Rua seemed to have opened up his conception and Governor Meridians. He was full of sweet nothings and was not as awkward as before. Wenwen received 3 big red packets. He put them in his pocket and did not stay idle. He played the role of a sweet and happy person and made the adults beam with joy. Although they were all over the world and could not pay New Year's greetings face to face, they did not stop paying New Year's greetings via video. They first paid New Year's greetings to Siyu's elders. Xijing and Xiaxia were overflowing with love when they saw the little fairy-like grandchildren. If it were not for the fact that they could not leave their house, they would have wanted to have a family reunion. After that, Fu Yunrua had a video call with Uncle May and Auntie May. It was very lively on the other side. There were many children fighting to appear on camera and talk to Wenwen. They obviously still remembered Wenwen. As the adults went to support Wenwen, they specially booked a group to watch a movie and brought the children along. The children were very proud and often mentioned Wenwen. Naturally, they would not forget him so quickly. In addition to the New Year's atmosphere, everyone was full of joy because their hometown was changing day by day. They were full of hope for the future. Auntie May and Fu Yunrua talked endlessly and detailed the changes in the village. They even said that many young people in the village did not plan to go out to work this year. They all stayed at home and would start a small business or something. Even Auntie May and Uncle May's only son came back and did not plan to go out. Fu Yunrua looked at Auntie May's constant smile and looked much younger. Behind her, Uncle May tapped his pipe and relaxed his eyebrows. She thought to herself, "How nice." After chatting, they sat on the sofa and ate snacks while watching the Spring Festival Gala. Every year, other than adding to the festive atmosphere of the Spring Festival, not many people would sit down to watch the Spring Festival Gala seriously. However, even if they did not watch it, every family would turn on the television to watch the Spring Festival Gala. Fu Yunrua happened to see an acquaintance among the people who went on stage to sing, so she sat down to watch. Among the celebrities wearing red robes, one of them was Xianxia. Last year, his luck was unstoppable. He had already swept many awards in one go and became the heavenly king of the singing world. He even held several concert tours. A song composed by him swept through the entire music industry from the moment it was released. It was still at the top of the list. Although they did not have many opportunities to meet, they would still greet each other on WeChat and were still very familiar with each other. After watching it, Fu Yunrua watched another skit and was amused. In the distance outside the floor-to-ceiling window, a bright firework suddenly lit up the dark night sky. Wenwen turned her head and ran to the floor-to-ceiling window to look up at the night sky. "Mommy, look at the fireworks." Fu Yunrua and the others walked over to watch the fireworks with Wenwen. After a while, Siyu left and came out with a box. She smiled and said to them, "Let's go and play with the fireworks too." Wenwen ran over cheering. They went out of the house and stood in the courtyard. The cold temperature outside could not extinguish their fiery hearts. The snow in the courtyard was swept clean and decorated with festive decorations. Siyu placed the box on the ground. There were big and small fireworks inside. Siyu placed the big one on the ground and then held Wenwen's chubby little hand to light it together. The little guy was still young, so the adults were naturally worried about him playing with dangerous fireworks alone. A few clusters of fireworks bloomed. It was not like the large-scale fireworks outside, but it was still very beautiful. Fu Yunrua took a short video of the fireworks and sent it backstage to congratulate her fans on the Happy New Year. After the fireworks, there were only some small fireworks played by children. Wenwen felt that it was not enough, so she continued to play with small fireworks. Siyu walked to Fu Yunrua and asked with a smile, "Do you want to play?" Fu Yunrua smiled and waved her hand. The lights in the distance were bright and neon lights were flickering. The fireworks in the sky were brilliant like stars. In the courtyard, Wenwen held the small fireworks and ran around excitedly. Uncle Gua held a cup of hot tea in his hand and watched with a smile. Fu Yunrua and Siyu stood under the roof and smiled as they watched Wenwen play with the small fireworks. Her little face was full of smiles and she was very happy. They turned their heads to look at each other at the same time. They looked into each other's eyes, which were filled with love and tenderness. It was as if they were looking at each other for 10,000 years. End of the article. After the extravaganza. See you. I'm so lucky to have you. Cloud rolling clouds, please take care of me. See you. The attached picture was a picture of the two of them wearing the same ring and holding a marriage certificate. It was like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples, instantly breaking the calmness of the internet and igniting a storm. As if feeling that the power was not enough, Siyu posted another post, directly stating that Wenwen was his biological son and attached a picture of an authoritative identification report. As for the various reasons, as it involved the personal matters of the parties involved, please forgive me. He only said that it was his fault in the past, and now that he had obtained Fu Yun's forgiveness, he also hoped that the fans would not overinterpret. The third post was that Siyu announced that he was officially retiring from acting and was going home to inherit the family business. Oh my god, oh my god. Married? Biological son? Retiring? There are too many rumors, which one should I scream first? What does brother you mean by this? I'm going crazy. The three pieces of news were too explosive. The fans were so dizzy from the explosion that they couldn't think. Their minds were only filled with the words In less than 3 minutes, the top 20 trending topics on all major social media platforms were all related to this topic. In less than 5 minutes, all the major online platforms crashed again and again, and there was no way to fix it. It was not until 3 hours later that some platforms with larger servers barely managed to stabilize. Although 3 hours had passed, regardless of whether it was fans or bystanders, all of them were very anxious, and all kinds of comments were increasing by tens of thousands every second. Congratulations! You're finally married. Brother Yu finally has a status. Little Moon is very happy. Zai is Brother Yu's biological son. Am I seeing things? Brother Yu is retiring? No, woo-woo, Brother Yu, don't go, to let the child have a proper status? Actually, there's no need for a duck. Regardless of whether he's related by blood or not, he's still Brother Yu's son, our baby. The comments were chaotic, and the fans were about to go crazy. There was too much information, and all of them were having trouble digesting it. Previously, they were still wishing the couple a happy marriage, but the next moment, they burst into tears. Siyu had actually officially retreated from the show. Then, they had to speculate about whether Wenwen's background was real or not, and what had happened in between. They also had to imagine the 100,000-word plot. It was too tiring, and their heads were about to explode. In the past 2 years, Siyu hadn't released any new works. There were rumors in the industry, and there were also private discussions among fans that their brother was going to become a behind-the-scenes producer and stop filming. However, as long as Siyu didn't make an official announcement, they still held on to hope. In the end, she announced her retreat. Countless fans begged Siyu to stay and not quit the show. Even if some of them threatened to become his haters, they couldn't change his mind. After crying, she even wished them well. In an instant, the fans experienced what it meant to have all kinds of flavors in life. The hot search lasted for an entire month. Countless fans rushed to their official social media accounts, wailing and crying. Fortunately, Xianxia had been monitoring the comments online, and overall, it didn't go out of control. Seeing that the popularity had finally died down, he heaved a sigh of relief. He really owed Siyu a lot in his previous life. He usually kept a low profile, but once he caused trouble, he made a big fuss. He also didn't understand that he was old and hadn't had a good rest for almost a month. However, he also understood that these 3 things would have to be announced sooner or later. Each of them could cause an earthquake. Siyu didn't want to be on the hot search list every few days, so they decided to announce them all together. That was why this month's incident happened. After the fans calmed down, they realized that everything was traceable. To be precise, it was just an official confirmation. Although Siyu and Fu Yun's relationship hadn't been officially announced, there were many rumors. Many fans and passers-by said that they had seen them act intimately in public, and the fans were well aware of it. After being a fan of Siyu for so many years, he had never been involved in any scandals. Only the scandal with Fu Yun had not been suppressed or clarified. This was a piece of news. Especially when Siyu accidentally appeared on camera during Fu Yun's live broadcast. Because of this, they were on the hot search list for 3 days. At that time, if Fu Yun only said that she was a friend, Siyu would also explain that they were friends. However, from between the lines, they felt that Siyu felt wronged. They even teased when they would give their brother Yu a status. They were all waiting for the official announcement and when Siyu would be given a status. They didn't expect that they would directly receive the news that they had registered their marriage. As for the fact that Wenwen was Siyu's biological son, there were already people who said that Wenwen resembled Siyu. They didn't look alike, but they had some small habits and temperament. However, no one took it seriously. They only felt that it was because the child had learned a lot from the adults and looked a little alike. In the end, Siyu threw such a huge bomb at them. Regardless of the truth, most of Siyu's fans believed what they said. They felt that if it wasn't true, why did they have to make such an unnecessary move? After all, if he married Fu Yun, he would be considered as a son. There was still a difference. A stepson was different from a biological son. The fans were mentally exhausted. Perhaps it was because the 3 pieces of news were too shocking that they accepted it well. Slowly, they digested the 3 pieces of news. Then, they realized that although Siyu had retreated from acting, he had not completely left the entertainment industry. Recently, many high-quality films and television dramas had Siyu's investment behind them. Slowly, they accepted it. It didn't matter. As long as there were traces of their brother and they knew how he was doing, it didn't matter if he didn't act anymore. If he could be a boss, he wouldn't have to work so hard as an actor. They just had to watch 1 less movie every year. It didn't matter. They still had their children. Compared to Siyu, Wenwen had surpassed him. At such a young age, his acting skills were so natural and full of spirit. It was amazing. They could still be fans for 10,000 years. After Siyu left the entertainment industry, his fans still silently followed him. His private life was not as tightly hidden as before. Then, from time to time, Siyu's private life would spread in the fan club. Some people who still couldn't accept the fact that Siyu had retreated from acting were also able to accept this situation. Brother Yu was going to inherit the family business. He was going to have a great harvest in both love and career. What else could they do? If they had money and love, who would still work so hard? Furthermore, after Siyu and Fu Yun got married, he would openly appear in Fu Yun's live broadcast. From time to time, he would appear in a circle to declare his sovereignty. While the internet was boiling over, Yunhua's family members had mixed feelings. They were happy that their idols had found a good match, but they were also sad that their idols had been snatched away. The sour, sweet, bitter, and spicy feelings were extremely satisfying. The messages in the group chat were also constantly updated. Many of the managers of the fan club had a common group chat. They communicated with each other on how to guide the fans well and also shared their thoughts. The managers had been fans for many years. However, the internet was so big and the fan base was so large. There were always some irrational and brainless fans. However, those voices and anti-fan keyboard warriors were drowned out by the waves of blessings and didn't cause any ripples. After the fans were overjoyed, they started to at the person involved and expressed that they wanted to see the wedding. They had to see their idols get married with their own eyes. They wouldn't be satisfied if they only saw the wedding photos and didn't even see the wedding photos. The popularity that had just died down instantly rose again. Everyone at Siyu and Fu Yun requesting to see the wedding. Fu Yun and Siyu naturally saw everyone's requests online and instantly hesitated. Her wedding with Siyu would be held in the Si family's main house in a month's time. Now, they were preparing for the wedding. They had originally planned to keep a low profile, but so many fans wanted to see it. Fu Yun's heart softened when she saw the old fans who were usually active in the live broadcast crying. However, it wasn't appropriate for the Si family to be exposed. In the end, they thought of a way. When the time came, they would choose a segment of the wedding video and post it online. As for the live broadcast, it was impossible. As for the wedding photos, they had taken many of them. Fu Yun chose a portion of them and posted it online. It made the fans cry and made it to the hot search list a few times. The two of them were too compatible. They were simply the male and female leads in novels. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. Their temperament was good too. On the day of the wedding, Fu Yun and Siyu only invited their close friends and family. They didn't invite the media. If the media filmed the wedding, it would shock not only China but the whole world. The royal family of each country, the business world's top talents. They were all world-class figures. Other than the relatives of the people involved, those who didn't have enough status were not qualified to receive an invitation. This was a low-key but not low-key wedding of the century. It was destined to be the center of attention. At this moment, regardless of whether it was fans or passers-by, they had already become popular. Although they couldn't know what was going on and couldn't watch the live broadcast, Fu Yun and Siyu promised to release a video of the wedding. They were all looking forward to it. For the entire day, they had been waiting on social media. The news was already trending. The fans had carefully chosen the topics to give their blessings and were neatly ranked in the top 5 of the hot search list. They had already been waiting on the official account, giving their blessings and waiting. At the same time, the fans had bought huge advertising space in all the major landmark cities to express their blessings to Fu Yun and Siyu. The people in the city, even if they didn't care about the entertainment industry and the live broadcast industry, could see this good news when they looked up. Countless men and women were sighing. When would they also have such a happy life? Heaven didn't disappoint those who waited. They finally received the wedding video. The first video was a behind-the-scenes video. It showed Fu Yun wearing an exquisite and elegant wedding dress and putting on makeup. She was accompanied by a group of relatives and friends. They saw how Fu Yun looked in the wedding dress in the video. She was so beautiful. The one-of-a-kind wedding dress, the one-of-a-kind jewelry, and the one-of-a-kind person. The fans were so excited that their eyes were brimming with tears. Their Yun was the most beautiful bride. The second video was of the wedding scene. Fu Yunrua was holding onto a spirited old man as they walked down the red carpet. Then, the old man handed Fu Yunrua to the groom, Siyu. Amidst the thunderous applause, Fu Yunrua held onto Siyu's arm as they walked up the stage. The MC read the vows. Miss Fu Yunrua, are you willing to marry Mr. Siyu? In the future, regardless of whether you are rich or poor, in sickness or in health, or even in death, you will love him, respect him, and be loyal to him. Are you willing? Fu Yunrua replied solemnly, I am willing. Then, the MC looked at Siyu and asked, Mr. Siyu, Are you willing to marry Miss Fu Yunrua? In the days to come. Siyu looked at Fu Yunrua and said seriously, I am willing to marry Fu Yunrua. Regardless of whether you are rich or poor. I will love you, respect you, and be loyal to you. I will accompany you for the rest of my life, and I will never leave you, until the end of time. Not only did Siyu recite the marriage vows, he even added on to his promise. Fu Yunrua looked into Siyu's eyes, which were filled with deep affection. Fu Yunrua knew that Siyu could do it, so she smiled blissfully and said, Me too. When the two of them looked at each other affectionately, Wen, who was dressed in a gown, walked up the stage and gave the couple the rings. After the groom and the bride exchanged their rings, the MC said, The groom can kiss the bride now. Siyu and Fu Yunrua looked at each other and squatted down at the same time. They stretched out their hands to Wen and said, Wen, come here. Wen blinked and walked forward. Fu Yunrua and Siyu each hugged Wen with one hand and kissed Wen's tender little face. Wen's little face flushed red. Then, under the kind laughter of the guests, she ran off the stage with lipstick stains on her face and buried herself in Xiaojian's arms. Siyu helped Fu Yunrua stand up. They looked at each other and smiled. Then, Siyu lowered his head and kissed her. When the fans saw the most important moment, they were so emotional that tears welled up in their eyes. Although the faces of the guests, other than Fu Yunrua's family of 3, did not appear in the video, they saw the most important scene of the wedding ceremony. It was already very satisfying. They were so touched. Hence, the enthusiasm of the fans caused the server to crash once again. The trending topic was once again on the hot search list for a week before it went down. After the wedding, the family of 3 completely kept a low profile. The fans also returned to being Buddhist. In the fan group, all of them were in a state of retirement. Occasionally, they would dig out their old memories and eat them. Fu Yunrua and Siyu went on their honeymoon, while Wen went to school at the Si family's house. That's right, school. After half a year of fooling around, Wen was finally thrown to school by the heartless Siyu. He had to go to school every day and was now a glorious primary school student. At the same time, Wen also entered the Si family's genealogy book and became a real member of the Si family. He also had a new name, Si Chin. Fu Yunrua thought that since she and Siyu were getting married, Wen returning to the Si family was something that everyone would be happy to hear. She was not obsessed with Wen's surname. There was nothing in the Fu family that was worth remembering. If the child's surname was Si, he would be able to integrate into the Si family and get along well with the Si family. There was no need for her to be bothered about this. The name Fu Wen was used as a stage name. It was also considered another name. In the future, he would use this name for external activities. Wen's carefree days were cut off from then on. He was stunned. Not only did he have to go to school on time, but he also had to attend all kinds of elite classes and classes for prospective heirs. He wanted to go back to the days of following Fu Yunrua and Siyu all day long. QAQ after the shock of breaking news, the fans felt that they had been through hundreds of battles and that there was nothing that could make them make a fuss about it. In the end, half a year later, there was a sudden reversal that stunned the fans again. In Fu Yunrua's livestream, from the moment she started livestreaming, Mr. Digital, who had occupied the top of the reward list, was Siyu's alias. The fans. So this was actually an inspirational drama about true love fans pursuing their goddess? The fans reacted, especially Fu Yunrua's boyfriend fans, girlfriend fans, husband fans, and wife fans. They were instantly excited. They were together with Yun. As for the reason why the alias was exposed, it was naturally because a tall, rich, and handsome fan suddenly appeared in the livestream. This fan was Fu Yunrua's boyfriend fan. Even though his goddess was already married and had a child, he still expressed that he did not mind and wanted to pursue Fu Yunrua. Then, he spent a lot of money and even used his background to open up the livestream's reward list. He was determined to become the number 1 person on the reward list. However, after so many years, how could the number 1 Mr. Digital tolerate his position being threatened? After so many years, the total amount of rewards that Mr. Digital gave had reached a terrifying ratio. Everyone guessed that this Mr. Digital should be a fighter jet among the rich and powerful. He even gave them fan benefits many times and had all kinds of lucky draws. Even so, this Mr. Digital was still very low-key. Hence, he was very prestigious in Yun Duo's fan club. Now that there was a person who wanted to be a male mistress jumping up and down, they did not recognize him as a fan. They felt that it was embarrassing and even discussed in the group about how to suppress this flea. The fans expressed that this fighter Jed among the rich had been a fan of their goddess for so many years, but he did not use his power to threaten or tempt their goddess. He quietly became a true love fan and never overstepped his boundaries or caused trouble. This was the role model of a true love fan. This flea was too self-righteous. Siyu, the true love fan who never overstepped his boundaries. Hence, no one knew whether it was intentional or not, but Siyu fell in front of this fan who clamored that he was the one who loved Fu Yunrua the most. Okay, Yunyun's number one fan was together with Yunyun. Yunyun's number one fan was Siyu, the actor who had won countless awards. Okay, they knew. What kind of love did they have? The fans could not remain calm. Every time they felt that they were full of dog food, they would find ways to stuff more dog food into their mouths. They wanted to protest. Hence, the topic online was no longer about a fan confessing to a married broadcaster, but about that scheming B***starred Fu Yunrua, who had also just found out about Siyu's identity. She looked at the calm man suspiciously. Have you been harboring ill intentions towards me since a long time ago? Fu Yunrua thought that Siyu had probably found out when she fell in love with him back then. She did not expect him to hide it so well. Siyu smiled innocently. How is it bad intentions? This is clearly fate. Fu Yunrua's face was full of disbelief. Tell me, what else are you hiding from me? Siyu raised his hand and swore, no, definitely not. If I'm lying to you, I'll punish Wenwen so that she won't be able to lose weight. Wenwen, who had been raised to be as round as a pearl and as smooth as jade, was suddenly cued. She raised her head in confusion. When he realized that his chubby little body had been used as an oath, he snorted heavily. In 2 years, he would be able to slim down. This oath was not effective at all. Hence, he said crisply, Mommy, Daddy is still hiding something from you. If I lie, Daddy will get fat in his middle age. Siyu Rua. Fu Yunrua. Pfft. The little brat was still the most ruthless. In order not to get fat in his middle age, Siyu could only come clean. I was the one who caused the Chang family to go bankrupt. Fu Yunrua crossed her arms. Anything else? The house next to yours was not a coincidence. I bought it on purpose. Anything else? That house of yours is actually mine too. I was the one who passed the news to you through someone else. I carefully selected that neighborhood. Anything else? The big investor in the village is me. Siyu had indeed hidden a lot of things from Fu Yunrua. Fu Yunrua's gaze became very dangerous. After Siyu finished explaining everything, he hurriedly raised his hands and said fawningly, nothing else, really nothing else. I didn't mean to hide it from you. I was wrong. Wen had already jumped off the stool and ran away when Siyu was explaining everything. Then, he ran over breathlessly, carrying a durian that was bigger than his body. A pair of bright eyes peeked out from the durian. Wen placed the durian on the ground in front of Siyu and said excitedly, Mommy, I brought the durian over for you. Fu Yunrua patted Wen's head approvingly. Then, she looked at Siyu Rua and said, okay, look at how considerate your son is. You can do as you see fit. Siyu Rua. This was really a good son. And then there was the second part. It was a high-end nursing home on the outskirts of the capital city. It was famous for its beautiful and quiet environment, professional nursing team and privacy. Many rich and powerful retired people in the capital city would stay here for a period of time and many of them would enjoy their retirement here. On a quiet green path, a caregiver pushed a gray-haired, doddering old man out for a stroll. And the man in the wheelchair was Fu Zonghong. Over the past 3 to 4 years, his body had aged very quickly. He had forced himself to take charge of the Fu family in the hope that he could hand over the prosperous Fu family to Wen in the future. But his body would not be able to hold on until the day Wen grew up. After the company collapsed one time, his health deteriorated and he no longer had the energy to take charge of such a big company. Luckily, he was prepared and had groomed a capable agent to take over the company. Luckily, the handover was timely and the agent was very capable. Soon, Fu's enterprise, which was in chaos because of Fu Zonghong's collapse, was stabilized. Seeing that the situation had stabilized, Fu Zonghong lived in the nursing home with peace of mind. The nurse pushed him to the side of a lake. In front of him was a green lake surrounded by green grass. Because the lake was running water, there were many fish in it. The elderly who were free would come over to fish to kill time. There were also children who came to visit and accompany the elderly playing on the grass. Even he could hear their childish laughter clearly. Fu Zonghong looked at the peaceful and lively scene in front of him. His eyebrows relaxed and he could not help but smile. His eyes, which were already a little cloudy, were suddenly enlightened. He thought of the grandchildren he rarely saw and his daughter. Now that they had found a good home, he could rest assured. Fu Zonghong went to attend his daughter's wedding 2 years ago. Unfortunately, he could only watch from afar and could not bring his daughter to a new life as a father. He could not give her his blessings in person either. He was even afraid that she would be unhappy to see him, so he could only watch from afar. He hoped that he could be forgiven by Fu Yunrua, but he realized that he might not be able to live until that day. All these years, the more he thought about the past, the more guilty he felt. He had let Fu Yun down. After so many years of what he had done, no matter how warm her heart was, it had been broken by him. The mistake had already been made. Even if Fu Zonghong wanted to make amends, she no longer needed it. Ever since Fu Yun told him that the person who had the right to forgive him was no longer around, he had countless nightmares. He dreamed that his daughter had left the world alone because of his coldness and neglect. He was awakened countless times, his heart filled with grief. However, he didn't dare to think too much about it. He saw that Yunrua was still alive in the human world and that she was doing well. That was enough. However, he also wanted to do his part. Ever since he found out what kind of family Fu Yunrua had married into, he knew that the Fu family's assets were nothing in their eyes. However, this was the Fu family's hard work after all. Whether it was in the past or in the future, his only successor was Fu Yunrua. For a family like that, if she didn't have enough dowry, no matter how good the person she married into was, there would still be people in the family who would look down on her. Fu Zonghong was worried that Fu Yunrua and her son wouldn't have a good life in the Si family. Hence, Fu Zonghong still hoped that this could be a guarantee for Fu Yunrua and her son. He wanted to use the entire Fu family as a dowry for Fu Yunrua and her son. However, until now, he hadn't been able to see Fu Yunrua and her son. Fu Zonghong sighed. He had been muddle-headed for half of his life. He had pushed his only daughter away from him. Now that he was all alone, he deserved it. In fact, there were medical staff on standby 24 hours a day. There were also 4 nurses who took turns to look after him. The environment of the convalescent home was good, and there were also other residents to interact with. These days were relaxing and happy. The only regret was that his other old friends had family members who came to visit them from time to time. He was the only one who was truly all alone. A nurse walked over and asked respectfully, "Sir, Mrs. Fong wants to visit you. Do you want to meet her?" Fu Zonghong was silent. After a while, he sighed. It wasn't that no one came to visit him. There were still people who came to visit him. This Mrs. Fong was his ex-wife. Ever since she found out that he was staying in this convalescent home, she had been wanting to meet him. Fu Zonghong's expression was complicated, but he didn't agree to meet her. After being married for so many years, it was impossible to say that they didn't have feelings for each other. The older one got, the more nostalgic they were. However, he still remembered her cold words. How could he not know what Feng Wanting was thinking? She wanted to soften his heart so that she could become Mrs. Fu again and live a good life again. Although Fu Zonghong didn't do anything to the Chong family, Feng Wanting, and her daughter, he watched coldly from the sidelines. They didn't have a good life. He used to think that Feng Wanting was at least devoted to her only daughter. However, it was only now that he realized that she was an extremely selfish person. Once it involved her own interests, she would abandon her own daughter, even if it was her own. Before the fall of the Cheng family, Feng Wanping still had some patience for Feng Shuerua, who could still marry into the Cheng family. However, Feng Wanping's attitude changed after the Cheng family went bankrupt and was driven out of the capital in a sorry state. It was as if the Cheng family had become a burden to her, and she was worried that they would cling on to her. The money and property that Fu Zonghong gave her was her only source of income. She would definitely hold on to it tightly and wouldn't let anyone take it away from her, even if it was her own daughter. Fu Zonghong said lightly, "I don't want to see her." Then he said, "Push me back." Other people's family happiness was always his extravagant wish. Fu Zonghong didn't think about anything else. The only thing he wanted was to hand over the Fu family to Fu Yun and her daughter before he died. Although it was a nursing home, it wasn't the kind that had multiple rooms on one floor where the elderly lived. Instead, it was a standalone villa. Every villa was accompanied by a complete professional team. The annual expenses were very high, but those who could live in it were all rich. When he returned to the villa, his assistant, who had been the vice president for many years, came to see Fu Zonghong. When Fu Zonghong saw the vice president, he asked, "Did he agree to see you?" The vice president bowed slightly and answered respectfully, "Yes, he said that he will come to visit you in 2 days' time." Fu Zonghong's eyebrows relaxed slightly. At the entrance of the nursing home, Feng Wanting heard the security guards reply again. She bit her lips and left unwillingly. She hadn't had an easy time in the past few years. Although compared to most people, her life was much better, but there was always a comparison. No matter what, it couldn't be compared to the good life when she was Madame Fu. After living a pampered life for 20 years, how could she be willing to go back to the days when she had to think twice about buying jewelry? Feng Wanting always felt that she didn't do anything and that she was implicated by Feng Shui. Even if Fu Zonghong was angry with her, it had been a long time, right? Unfortunately, a few years had passed and she still hadn't found a chance to get close to him. When she found out that he was staying at the nursing home, she went to check in every day. She felt that Fu Zonghong, who was alone in the nursing home, needed someone to take care of him. If she expressed her concern and sincerity, wouldn't he be more soft-hearted? Feng Wanting had a good plan, but she didn't expect that she wouldn't be able to see him until now. She could only look for other opportunities. 2 days later, a handsome man in casual clothes and sunglasses appeared at the nursing home surrounded by bodyguards. Not long after, he stood in front of Fu Zonghong. "Chairman Fu." Fu Zonghong's face tensed up. "See you." Fu Zonghong's gaze swept behind him. He was slightly disappointed when he didn't see the person he wanted to see. "The person who came was see you. Have a seat." Fu Zonghong didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "I know that the Si family doesn't care about the Fu family's assets, but I hope that you can persuade Jianrua to accept it. It's all hers." Si Yu sat opposite Fu Zonghong. Fu Zonghong was his father-in-law in name, but what if his wife didn't approve of him? Therefore, Si Yu was polite and distant to Fu Zonghong. "Chairman Fu, you're making things difficult for me. Ruoruo once said that she wouldn't accept it. Ruoruo has the final say in the family, I can't go against her wishes." Fu Zonghong only came because he was Ruoruo's blood relative and he knew that his days were numbered. Si Yu said casually, "She said that she would rather you donate it all than accept it." Fu Zonghong was silent for a while. "Even if I donate it, I'll accept it first. You can do whatever you want with it. The Fu family has her mother's blood, sweat, and tears. Fu Yan's mother was a very outstanding woman. She had contributed greatly to the Fu family's development." Si Yu raised his eyebrows. He wasn't surprised. "I'll pass on the message. You, be nice to Yunrua and Wenwen." Fu Zonghong knew that he wasn't in a position to say these things, but even if he was an incompetent father, he still had to say these words. You can't let them suffer. Yunrua hasn't lived a happy life in the past 20 years. I hope that all of you will be well. Si Yu said, "I will." This was his responsibility. The estranged father-in-law and son-in-law chatted for a while. In the end, Si Yu said goodbye when he saw that it was about time. "Take care of yourself." After Si Yu left the convalescent home, he rushed to the airport. This time, he came back from abroad on a private jet. After meeting Fu Zonghong, he took another private jet back. Ever since Wen started studying at the Si family school, Fu Yun considered seriously and decided to move over to live there. A child's childhood was only a few years, and it was irreversible. Fu Yun still hoped that she could watch Wen grow up. Therefore, after persuading Uncle Gua, she built a flower garden at a suitable place in the Fu family's house and cultivated orchids with Uncle Gua. After so many years, Fu Yun cultivated more than 1 pot of mutated orchids, which was worth more than 10 million yuan. She was quite famous in the orchids industry. She would still do a live broadcast, but she rarely showed her face. Just like in the beginning, she only focused on the process of cultivating the orchids. This time, Siyu returned to China alone to meet Fu Zonghong. He didn't inform Fu Yun in advance. The moment he returned home, he immediately confessed to Fu Yun. When Fu Yun heard Siyu's explanation, she was silent for a moment. Siyu quickly coaxed, "I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't have asked for your opinion first. If you're still angry, punish me. But can I kneel on something else this time? I think the washboard I bought last time is pretty good." Siyu had a strong desire to live. He felt that kneeling on a durian was too much of a scam. He might as well kneel on a washboard. Fu Yun couldn't help but laugh. Then, she stopped smiling. "I'm not angry." "Really?" Siyu carefully looked at her expression. "If I say that I still don't want to see him, will you think that I'm cold-hearted?" Fu Yun couldn't help but ask. She was living a good life now, and all the hardships she had suffered in the past were over. If this matter were to spread, she would probably be scolded by a bunch of people, right? No matter what, he was still her biological father. He was already regretting it now, yet he still insisted on leaving all the family assets to her. He had already compensated her, yet he was still so pretentious. Fu Yun said, "I always feel that the first 20 years of my life and the life after I met you were separate. I always feel that the person who suffered in the past wasn't me, so I feel that I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness now. I'm not the person involved." As she spoke, she felt that she was speaking incoherently. Finally, she looked at Siyu with a hopeful gaze. "Do you understand what I mean?" Siyu hugged Fu Yun and said softly, "I understand. No matter what decision you make, I'll support you. Blood ties are the most magical bond in the world. Humans are born to be close to their blood relatives. This is human nature. Even if you're riddled with wounds by your blood relatives, deep in your heart, you still hope to be close to them. But if you're really hurt too deeply, your heart will turn cold, so cold that you'll even give up on your instincts. The person who's in the most pain is you, not others. My heart aches. For you." Fu Yun's tears fell just like that. She leaned into Siyu's embrace and felt that there was still someone in this world who understood her. She also loved the original owner so much, so how could she forgive her? Siyu gently wiped away her tears. "Don't cry. I promised that I wouldn't let you cry. You can't cry anymore, otherwise, Wen will be angry." "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have gone." Fu Yun shook her head. She suddenly felt relieved. "The next time you go, bring Wen to see them." She didn't want to see them because it was between her and the original owner. But Wen was her grandson after all, and Siyu was her son-in-law. The matter of the Fu family would be forgotten with the passage of time. In the end, the world would only see Fu Zonghong living the rest of his life alone. They would pity him, and then they would start to criticize those relatives who never showed up. After all, Fu Yun didn't really leave the Fu family, and Fu Zonghong didn't chase her out of the family like in the original novel. She didn't want the two most important people to her to be criticized because of this matter many years later. Therefore, Siyu would bring Wen to see them when she had time in the future. It wasn't a big deal to see them occasionally. As for her, it didn't matter if others criticized her. In the future, she would only see them one last time because they were related by blood. Siyu lowered her head and kissed Fu Yun. She felt pity in her heart. "Okay. A dream of golden millet one. Hey! Wake up, don't pretend to be asleep. Wake up." Wen was woken up by the cold. Specifically, it was not because of the cold, but because of the discomfort in his body. He clutched his head and sat up dizzily. A dirty kid wearing patched clothes saw that the little bean on the ground had woken up and quickly retracted his foot. Then, he said angrily, "I knew you were faking it. I'm telling you, Chi-Wen. In the future, you better obediently give me your steamed buns. Otherwise, I'll hit you again, okay?" Wen felt pain everywhere. He had a headache, was dizzy, and his stomach was cramping from hunger. He felt weak all over, and his limbs were aching. He was also very cold. However, there was still a cacophony of noise in his ears. Wen impatiently scolded, "Shut up." The voice that came out of his mouth was soft and full of childishness. Wen was stunned for a moment. Ever since his little body started to twitch, his childishness had slowly faded. It had the crispness and vitality of a youth. This childishness, did he have this voice when he was 3 or 4 years old? When the kid heard the scolding on the ground, he immediately kicked him. "You little brat, are you tired of living? How dare you scold me? See if I don't." "Qi Deqian, are you bullying a child again?" An adult's voice sounded. The child named Qi Deqian quickly withdrew his foot and ran away before the adult came over. Qi Deqian? Wen took a long time to recall this name from his dizzy head. Not long after, a short but very stout woman walked over cursing. "Hurry up and come over here. Why are you lying on the ground? You dirted your clothes and want to change, right? Do you have anything to change into?" "Chi-Wen. I'm talking to you. Hurry up and get up." "Chi-Wen?" Wen raised his head and saw a familiar face in the depths of his memory. After a long time, he remembered that this was Mother Mo from the orphanage. Wen's expression suddenly changed. He turned his head and looked around. What he saw was a dilapidated and desolate courtyard, and he was sitting on the dirty ground. This was an orphanage? Was he reborn again? Wen lowered his head and looked at his black, claw-like hands. Was this when he was reborn in the orphanage? What about Mom? Was his mother still around at this time? Wen was terrified. Then, he was rudely pulled up. "You brat, you don't want to live anymore? You didn't even respond when I called you." Wen raised her head, her unusually large eyes filled with tears. Mother Mo still wanted to scold her, but she didn't do it in the end. Instead, she walked away while cursing. "Cry, cry, cry. Will you get candy if you cry?" Wen stood alone for a moment before she calmed down. Wen thought that he must calm down. He had to find a way to leave the orphanage and find his parents first. Wen wiped her tears, leaving an even darker mark on her face. He rubbed his stomach. He was so hungry that he didn't feel hungry at all. He had to figure out his situation first. Wen dragged his sore and weak body into the house. He had been pampered and spoiled for more than 10 years. Whenever there was a cut on his hand, there would be a circle of people around him to feel sorry for him. Now, his whole body hurt, but there was no one around him to feel sorry for him. Wen felt even more wronged, and tears almost came out of his eyes. What was going on? He was just sleeping. Why did he return to his childhood and his previous life when he woke up? He didn't want to experience it again. He was living so happily now. Why did he have to be reborn? Could it be that it was just a dream? Could it be that this was his real rebirth? No, it couldn't be. His experience was so real. It couldn't be a dream. He must have a chance to go back. Wen's thoughts ran wild as he entered the house. On the other side of the corridor, a thin and weak child timidly poked his head out. "Chi-Wen." When he saw Chi-Wen looking over, the child slowly walked out. He grabbed the corner of his dirty clothes and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Chi-Wen. I didn't run away on purpose. I was afraid that he wanted to snatch my steamed buns too." Chi-Wen looked at him. Looking at the child who was half a head taller than him, he felt that he looked familiar. However, he had already forgotten his name. He only remembered that he hadn't seen him since he grew up. Chi-Wen didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Take me back to my room." He needed to lie down and organize his thoughts. However, he had already forgotten where he lived. He could only let the child in front of him take him there. "Oh? Oh. The child hurriedly led Chiwen forward and pushed open an old door with peeling paint. Chiwen looked around. There were more than 10 densely packed old bunk beds. Other than the bed, there wasn't even a cabinet in the room. The child's belongings were basically piled up on his bed. It was a mess. However, the children didn't have much of their own belongings. Which bed is mine? I want to lie down. The child hurriedly pointed to the outermost bunk bed and hurriedly said, "Hurry up and lie down." After Chiwen lay down, the child said worriedly, "Chiwen, are you okay? Did you hit your head?" The child remembered that before he ran away, he saw Chiwen hit his head with his fist. Chiwen opened his eyes and looked at the dark ceiling of the bed. He didn't say anything. It wasn't that he was cold, but he felt uncomfortable everywhere. His whole body was soft and weak. He just wanted to sleep and never wake up. He didn't know if he would go back the moment he opened his eyes after falling asleep. The child hesitated for a moment. He found half a steamed bun that he had just hidden under his bed. After thinking for a moment, he carefully broke off a quarter of the steamed bun and hid it back. Then, he took the big steamed bun and ran over to Chiwen. He reluctantly said, "Hurry up and eat it." Chiwen opened his eyes and looked at the cold and hard steamed bun in his hand. He didn't care that it was dirty. He hurriedly put it into his mouth. After 2 bites, he swallowed it. "Water." The child hurriedly patted Chiwen's back. "How are you? Are you okay?" "There's no water at home." They had to go to the canteen to drink water. They didn't have water here. Chiwen choked for a long time before he recovered. This time, he slowly ate the steamed bun in small mouthfuls. Was his life in the orphanage so difficult? The child swallowed his saliva and looked at Chiwen. "I'll give you the steamed bun. You won't ignore me, right? If I don't run away, Qian will definitely snatch both of our steamed bun." Chiwen finished half of the cold and hard steamed bun. With some food in his stomach, he felt even hungrier. However, he finally had a little strength. Under the child's nagging, he finally remembered which year he had returned to. He was 6 years old now. He remembered that at this time, the canteen's dinner was a steamed bun. However, the uncle in the canteen didn't want to wait for them to finish eating. He wanted to close the door and leave early, so he chased them out of the canteen and locked the door. The food in the canteen wasn't enough to fill their stomachs every day. They were hungry every day. Therefore, when the adults left, the older children who were more domineering would snatch the steamed buns from the younger children. Qian wanted to snatch Chiwen's steamed bun. When the other children saw the older children snatching it, they quickly ran away, afraid that they would be snatched away too. Of course, Chiwen wouldn't let it happen. Therefore, he fought with Qian. Chiwen had been hungry since he was young. He was skinny and skinny. At the age of 6, he was shorter than a 3 or 4-year-old child. Even if he had a fierce spirit in his bones, he couldn't beat Qian, who was a few years older and stronger than him. Chiwen remembered that he was knocked unconscious and laid on the cold ground for half a day. In the end, he even had a fever. The director scolded him for half a month because he wasted money. Chiwen thought to himself. So it was at this time. But now that he was here and hadn't been lying on the ground for long, he shouldn't be sick. Chiwen lay on the bed for a while. Then, he suddenly sat up. The child who had been rambling on and on was startled, and then he shut his mouth. Chiwen looked at the child in front of him. "What's your name?" The child looked at Chiwen. Suddenly, he pouted and tears flowed down his face. "Chiwen, is your head really damaged? Don't you remember me?" "I'm Daodu." Chiwen's head hurt from the crying. "I remember. This Daodu used to follow him around when he was young. He was 1 year younger than him. Although he was also skinny, he was taller than him. Daodu wasn't in the orphanage when he was a baby. He was sent here half a year ago." He remembered that not long after, Daodu was adopted. After that, there was no news of him. Daodu's eyes were brimming with tears. "Really? Really?" Chiwen got off the bed and looked at Daodu. "Follow me." Daodu wiped his tears and followed behind Chiwen. "Where are we going?" "We're going to look for food." Of course, he wanted to look for food while he still had some energy. He really didn't know how he survived in the past. Now, he felt like he was going to starve to death at any time. Oh. The only place to eat in the orphanage was the kitchen. Hence, Chiwen brought Daodu to the kitchen first. The door to the canteen was locked. They couldn't enter, so naturally, they couldn't enter the kitchen. The door lock was invincible to children, but to Chiwen, who had the intelligence of an adult, it was a piece of cake. Chiwen asked Daodu to keep a lookout for him. Then, he found some tools and after a while, he managed to unlock a very simple lock. Chiwen quietly went in and closed the door. Although it was called a canteen, it was actually a small room of about 20 to 30 square meters. There were small tattered tables and stools in the room. On the other side of the small room, there was a door. This was the kitchen. The kitchen wasn't big. Although this was an orphanage, there weren't many orphans. Hence, there weren't many government subsidies. Moreover, the internet wasn't very developed. Their source of income was the occasional donations from the nearby residents. Their clothes and toys were all donated by the nearby residents. In addition, they also had the savings of the director, which barely supported them. Hence, Chiwen didn't hate the director. Although the director was fierce and didn't treat them well, he still gave them a place to stay. However, he really hated this uncle who cooked for them every day. Originally, with their source of income, they could have enough to eat and wear. However, a part of the money used to buy ingredients was embezzled by this uncle. That was why they had to suffer so much. The director also trusted this uncle chef very much. This uncle chef was a distant relative of his. He came over to help enthusiastically and didn't ask for a high salary. Hence, he had always trusted this uncle chef. Perhaps because he trusted the lock on the outside, the kitchen door wasn't locked. It was just ajar. Chiwen went in and looked around. There were very few ingredients in the kitchen. It was impossible to have meat. There were only a few green vegetables. They were yellow and withered. Presumably, they were their lunch dishes. The most abundant thing in the kitchen was rice. However, they wouldn't be able to eat rice. That was a treat that only happened during festivals. Usually, they would only eat porridge. In the end, Chiwen took a small pot and grabbed a few handfuls of rice. He knew that this pot was used by the chef for special treatment. There were only 3 green vegetables. If one was missing, it would be discovered immediately. However, if the rice was missing, it might not be discovered. Wenwen wanted to cook a few more times. Hence, he took some rice and matches with him. When he came out, he would lock the door again. At night, he would sneak back in to return the pot. Daodu was shocked when she saw Chiwen come out with a small pot. Chiwen shushed her and left secretly with Daodu. The location of the orphanage was very desolate. Chiwen and Daodu found a secluded place. They found some firewood, washed the rice, and cooked it. Then, they shared it. Daodu smacked her lips in satisfaction. She touched her stomach and said, "It's so delicious." So this is the feeling of being full. Wenwen was also full. They had been hungry for a long time. Their appetite had long become small. Half a bowl of rice was enough to fill them up. At this time, the sky was a little dark. Now that it was autumn, the weather began to turn cold. They didn't have many thick clothes. It was estimated that this year would be difficult for them again. Wenwen looked at his black claws and seemed to smell something strange. After temporarily solving the problem of food and clothing, Chiwen paid attention to himself. He couldn't stand the dirt on his body, so he went to a nearby canal and began to wash his hands. The water was cold. As soon as he put his hands down, he was shocked by the cold. He dipped his hands into the water. The dirty water immediately spread. He hurriedly rubbed his hands again and again. Daodu looked at Chiwen curiously. After washing his hands and feet, he washed his face. "Chiwen, aren't you afraid of the cold?" "I am." But he was more afraid of being dirty. If the water wasn't so cold, he would have washed his whole body. He always felt uncomfortable being dirty. Chiwen rubbed his skin until it turned red. After a long time, he stopped. With this condition, he could only wash like this. Then, he ran back to the orphanage with Dowdo. Running could warm the body. At this time, the sky was completely dark. Jiwen first hid the pot and the matches in a secluded corner near the kitchen. Then, he went back to the house. From afar, they heard the director's loud voice. "Where the hell are you? Hurry up and come back to sleep." Dowdo shrunk her neck and subconsciously pulled the corner of Jiwen's clothes. Jiwen reminded her, "Do you still remember what I said?" Dowdo hurriedly nodded. Yes. He definitely wouldn't let the cat out of the bag. He still wanted to eat his fill. Then, Jiwen brought Dowdo back. After entering the house where they slept, the director's loud voice was no longer blocked. It was very loud and clear. There were already a few children lying on the bed in the house. All the children in the orphanage were in this room. There were a total of 11 children. The older children slept on the top bunk, and the younger children slept on the bottom bunk. "Is everyone here? If you are, hurry up and turn off the lights and sleep. Don't waste electricity." Jiwen and Dowdo hurriedly went to their beds. Seeing that everyone was lying down, the director turned off the lights and closed the door. Then, she left. Jiwen lay on the cold and hard bed. For a long time, he didn't move. The house was silent. There wasn't much entertainment in the orphanage. Even if the children didn't know anything, they knew that if they slept more, they wouldn't feel so uncomfortably hungry. Therefore, once the sky turned dark, they would lie on the bed. During the day, other than when it was time to eat, the other children would go around looking for food. The director didn't restrict the older children from going out. As for the younger children, they were all left in the orphanage. They were not allowed to go out so that they wouldn't be kidnapped and become beggars. Jiwen closed his eyes and began to sleep. He prayed in his heart that he would be back when he woke up. A dream of golden millet too. When Jiwen regained consciousness again, he didn't open his eyes immediately. Instead, he rolled his eyes and prepared himself before he quietly opened his eyes. Seeing that the bed was still black, Jiwen felt a sense of loss. However, he didn't feel disappointed for long. When he saw that the sky was slightly bright, he quickly got up and quietly went out. He originally wanted to return the pot in the middle of the night, but he didn't expect to sleep until dawn. Fortunately, the chef didn't come over so early in the morning to make breakfast for them. Jiwen quickly put the pot back in its original position, locked the kitchen door, and returned to the room to continue lying down. He was thinking about how to find his parents. He didn't know where they were now and how far away they were from the orphanage. When going out, one must have money. Jiwen searched his bed, but he didn't find a single cent. However, he quickly remembered that there were so many people in the house. He definitely didn't keep his money in the house. There were too many people and too many hands. Jiwen vaguely remembered that he should be hiding somewhere outside, but he couldn't remember the specific location. He still had to look for it. When it was almost 10 o'clock, they got up and had breakfast. As usual, breakfast was porridge. Jiwen wasn't picky. After finishing it in one gulp, he put down the bowl and ran out. Dowdo subconsciously wanted to follow, but seeing that there was still some porridge in the bowl, he couldn't bear to put it down. After he finished the porridge and went out, he couldn't see where Jiwen went. Jiwen went to his secret base. When he saw the place, he finally remembered where he hid his money. He hid underground in the weeds on the back hill. Jiwen followed his memory and dug up the metal can. Then, he looked through it. He put the palm-sized dolls aside and counted his savings. Jiwen grew up in the orphanage and only learned to save money in the past 2 years. However, how could such a young child have a way to get money? Some of it was picked up from the corners of the ground, and some of it was the New Year's money that the mother of the orphanage gave him during the New Year. Most of it was coins. There were 1 yuan, 50 cents, 12 cents, and the biggest one was a 5 yuan note. Jiwen counted and found that there were only 17 yuan in total. This was a huge sum of money for a child. However, Jiwen had to travel thousands of miles to find her parents. This amount of money was simply not enough. The orphanage he was in was located in a county under a 4th-tier city. The place was very remote and was thousands of miles away from the imperial capital. Jiwen originally wanted to go to the countryside in the south, but after thinking about it, her mother probably didn't go to Xianxia village in this life. Her parents were both from the imperial capital, so her father should be in the imperial capital at this time. Chiwen decided to go to the capital to look for them first. If his parents were not in the capital, he could go to Apple Entertainment and wait for Uncle Yuan. Chiwen had a direction and then decided to see how to get to the capital. It was impossible for a child like him to go to the imperial capital. He couldn't get on a plane, so it was too risky for him to take a high-speed train and go back and forth with these drugs. Chiwen was thinking about how he was going to get to the capital. He buried his belongings and headed to the orphanage. Before they could return to the orphanage, they were blocked by Chi Daqian and 2 other children. Chiwen looked at Chi Daqian. He hadn't settled the score with him yet, and he was already coming to find him? Chi Daqian put his hands on his hips. Chiwen, did you hide something delicious? Hurry up and hand it over. No. I don't believe it. The director's mother likes you the most. She must have secretly given you candy. Hurry up and hand it over. The director's mother had indeed given Chiwen candy in private. Unfortunately, Chi Daqian had seen it. Therefore, he had always remembered this and would come to snatch Chiwen's things from time to time. Before he was 7 years old, Chiwen had always been bullied. Later on, he became ruthless and hit Chi Daqian's head with a brick. He pressed him down and beat him until he was dead. Chi Daqian was scared of him, and from then on, he avoided him whenever he saw him. In the orphanage, all the children who came to the orphanage before they could remember anything had the same surname as the director's mother. The director's mother's name was Chi Mo. Sometimes they would call her Mommy Mo, and sometimes they would call her Mommy Principal. There were 11 children in the orphanage, and only 3 of them had the surname Chi. He and Chi Daqian were 2 of them. The other one was a girl with cleft lips. She had been quiet since she was young and did not have much of a presence among them. Chiwen was the youngest of the 3 who had been taken care of by the director's mother since he was a baby. Therefore, sometimes the director's mother would protect him. Perhaps it was because of this that Chi Daqian had always disliked him. Even if he was not the youngest in the orphanage, he would always bully him. The current Chiwen was not the same as before. He could not be bullied so easily. Chiwen could still feel the dull pain in his body. He said coldly, I said I didn't, so I didn't. If you didn't, why did you run so fast? You must have eaten it behind our backs. That's right. If you don't want to hand it over, we'll search you. Therefore, the 3 children rushed forward, wanting to pin Chiwen on the ground and search his body. Chiwen would not let them succeed. He quickly dodged and hooked one of the children's feet, making him fall forward. Then, he kicked the other child. Ah! Ouch! Chiwen had learned Sonda for several years. Even if he was only a small body now, it was more than enough to deal with them. After Chiwen defeated the 2 children, he called out to Chi Daqian and beat him up. Chi Daqian wanted to turn over but could not. He could only use his hands to block the punches and cry out in pain. Stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Chiwen turned a deaf ear to him and swore to let him have a taste of his punches. In the end, his hands hurt a little, so he stopped. Chiwen clenched his small fists and said, If you dare to provoke me again, I'll let you know why the flowers are so red. Chi Daqian covered his face and quickly ran away with his 2 underlings. When did Chiwen, this little bastard, become so powerful? Yesterday, he was the one who beat him up. Just wait, he will definitely take revenge. Chiwen waited for them to leave before he shook his hands and blew on his little paws. Damn, there was no meat on his hands. His bones hurt when he hit people. Dowdu suddenly appeared with a look of admiration. Chiwen, you're so powerful. Apparently, he had been hiding nearby but did not dare to come out when they were fighting. Chiwen looked at Dowdu. It was human nature to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. He did not have any opinions about Dowdu, but he would not get too close to him. Dowdu followed Chiwen and asked mysteriously, Chiwen, shall we continue tonight? Chiwen said casually, we'll see. Oh. Chiwen was bored in the orphanage for a while. He felt that he could not just sit around and wait for death. He wanted to go out and see if there was a way to make money. Before winter came, He wanted to see if he could save enough money for travel and living expenses and quickly find someone in imperial capital. Jiwon quickly slipped out of the orphanage when no one was paying attention. The orphanage was in a very remote area, but there were residential buildings around it. However, the buildings were very old and had a sense of age. Jiwon saw that passers-by avoided him. He looked down at himself. His clothes were so dirty that he could not see the original color. His hair was also dirty and tangled. He had just washed his hands and feet yesterday, but they were still dark. There was no other way. His skin was very dark now, and he had not washed it clean for many years. His skin had always been dark. They did not have many clothes. Jiwon only had one set of clothes that fit him. The children in the orphanage were all like this. They would wear the same set of clothes for many days before changing. Jiwon thought for a while and observed for a long time. He found an old granny who looked kind and had children at home. He walked up and said pitifully, "Granny, can you give me a set of clothes?" The old granny saw a child who was about the same age as her grandson but had a sallow face and was as thin as a refugee. She said to Jiwon, "Wait a moment. Granny will get it for you." She muttered to herself, "Poor boy." She went into the house. Jiwon waited at the door for a while. The old granny came out with a set of old clothes and 2 steamed buns in her hand. "Here, child." "Thank you, Granny," Jiwon said sweetly. After thanking her again and again, Jiwon found a place to eat the 2 steamed buns. Then, he went to a river and washed his hair. He wiped his body clean and put on the warm old clothes. Compared to the thin and dirty clothes from before, this set of long sleeves and long pants was really very warm. Jiwon washed himself clean and put on the clean clothes. In an instant, he changed from a dirty little beggar to a clean little beggar. He put his hand into his pocket and felt something. He took it out and saw that it was a few 1 and 5 yuan notes. Jiwon thought for a while. The old granny must have put them in. A dream of golden millet 3. Jiwon strolled around outside and felt a little familiar with this county. In the past, in order to find food and earn money, he used to walk all over this county. Although many years had passed, Jiwon's memories of this county surfaced in his mind when he saw these familiar scenery. He followed behind a few adults and boarded an old bus. The driver and other passengers did not notice anything strange. They thought that this was a passenger's child. They took a few more glances because this child was dark and thin. Jiwon sat in a seat. He remembered that this bus went to the center of the county. He was going to take a look there. After sitting for half an hour, Jiwon followed the others out of the bus and came to a bustling place in the county. He was a child. If he walked alone, it would be easy for bad people to notice him. Therefore, Jiwon walked to a lively place and followed some adults with a calm expression. He saw a public phone at the entrance of a grocery store. His eyes lit up and he quickly ran over. Why would he need to go to the capital alone to find someone? He just needed to let them find him. He looked at the middle-aged woman sitting beside him and took out a yuan from his pocket. "Sister, I want to make a phone call." The middle-aged woman was called sister by a child. She immediately beamed with joy and took the yuan from him. She said amiably, "Go ahead." Seeing that the child was not tall enough, she even brought a stool for him to stand on to make a phone call. "Little guy, why are you alone? Where are your parents?" The middle-aged woman looked around and did not see any adults who seemed to be his parents. She could not help but ask. "My grandmother is buying things in the shop next door." "I'll call my parents," Jiwon said. Then, he dialed a phone number that he had memorized by heart. When the phone rang, Jiwon's heart almost stopped beating. He could get through. "Mom." The moment the call was connected, Jiwon's shout was still stuck in his throat. A rough male voice came over. "Hello, who is this?" Jiwon was stunned for a moment. Then, he said, "Hello, I'm looking for Fu Yun." "Who is it?" "I don't know you." "Wrong number." Beep, beep, beep. Jiwon heard the voice after the phone was hung up. He did not give up and dialed the number again. The moment the call was connected, Jiwon quickly said, "I'm looking for the owner of this number." "What's wrong with you, kid?" "I'm the owner of this phone." I don't know the person you're talking about. The call was hung up again. Jiwen held the phone, looking dejected and disappointed. Wasn't this her mother's phone number in this life? Jiwen made another call. This time, he called Siyu's private number. However, this time, the phone notified him that the number he had dialed was not within the service area. I can't get through. How could this be? He wanted to contact them and have them pick him up directly. At this time, he heard two young girls talking about their idols. Our brother is really amazing. I heard that he's going to change his manager. Brother will definitely be able to develop even better in the future. Which agent did you change? Yuan Xian. Do you understand? That legendary figure. Didn't they say that he's no longer managing newcomers? Why not? Look at what everyone is saying online. I think it's highly likely that ever since Siyu stopped acting, he no longer has any artists under him. Of course, he has to manage our brother. Our brother is so outstanding. In the future, his achievements will definitely be greater than Siyu's. Yes. Yuan Xian? Jiwen's eyes lit up. Yes, there was still Uncle Yuan. Jiwen quickly called Yuan Xian. When the call got through and he heard the familiar voice, Jiwen almost cried. Hello, who is this? Are you Uncle Yuan Xian Yuan? I am. The young voice came through. Yuan Xian thought about which familiar junior had called his private number and said in a gentle voice, Little kid, who are you? Jiwen said sternly, Is there anyone around you? Yuan Xian looked around. He was alone in the large office. Yuan Xian walked to the chair behind the desk and said, No. Jiwen looked around. When he saw that no one was paying attention to him, he lowered his voice and said, Uncle Yuan, I'm Siyu's son. Yuan Xian's but had just touched the leather cushion when he heard this. He lost his balance and fell to the floor. He didn't even hold his phone properly. It fell to the floor with a loud thud. When Jiwen heard the commotion, he asked with concern, Uncle Yuan, are you okay? Yuan Xian fumbled for his phone and crawled up from under the desk. He grimaced in pain as he sat down on the chair. He saw that his phone was still connected and asked, Little kid, what did you say? Had he heard wrongly? Who was it? Siyu's son? Yuan Xian looked at the calendar on the desk. Today wasn't April Fool's Day. Who would be so bored as to play such a joke on him? I'm Siyu's son, Yuan Xian repeated. I know it's sudden and you won't believe me, but I'm telling the truth. If you want to know the truth, come and find me. Jiwen told him the address of the orphanage and his name. My name is Jiwen. Jiwen knew that his father and Uncle Yuan didn't know of his existence. However, he knew that Yuan Xian would come to verify it regardless of whether it was true or not. When Uncle Yuan came, he was confident that he would be able to convince him. Do you remember it? Jiwen asked worriedly. When Yuan Xian heard the other party speak with certainty, he went from being very doubtful to being half convinced. Could he really be Siyu's son? That couldn't be right. He had been by Siyu's side for so many years and had never seen him get close to any woman. However, he didn't follow Siyu around the clock. What if? He instinctively remembered the address and said, Little kid, you can't lie. I don't care who taught you to say that. I won't pursue the matter this time, but you can't do it again. When Jiwen heard Yuan Xian's words, he knew that he had remembered it and would definitely come to verify it. Thus, he was relieved. Goodbye, Uncle Yuan. Jiwen hung up the phone and jumped off the stool. He thanked the store manager and skipped away, ready to go back. Now, he just had to wait patiently at the orphanage. On the other hand, Yuan Xian was stunned for a long time when he received this bombshell. He picked up his phone and wanted to call Siyu. Before the call went through, Yuan Xian thought about it. He still didn't know whether this was true or not. It didn't seem right to rashly tell Siyu about it. He wasn't in the country at the moment. He was busy being a domineering CEO. Therefore, he decided to confirm it first. Yuan Xian couldn't sit still anymore. He brought along two tight-lipped bodyguards and hurried to the address he had memorized. Wen successfully returned to the orphanage and realized that all the children were standing in the courtyard. The director's loud voice was deafening. Didn't any of you see such a big person go missing? Don't you have eyes? The moment Chiwen appeared, a child with a drooping head saw him and immediately pointed at him. Director, Chiwen is back. The director turned his head and saw Chiwen standing at the door. She walked over angrily and roughly pinched Chiwen's ear. You little rascal, where did you go to fool around? Huh? Aren't you afraid of being caught by bad people? Chiwen stood on his tiptoes and tried to cover his ear. I was wrong. I went to the nearby residential area. Chiwen hurriedly explained. The director had noticed that something was wrong when he had been out for a long time, especially when he had not appeared even when it was mealtime. The director was angry and anxious. She did not watch over them strictly, but these children were usually well behaved. They only played nearby and came back on time when it was mealtime. She did not need to worry about them. She did not expect the usually obedient Chiwen to run off alone for half a day without a trace. The director scolded Chiwen for a long time and finally punished him with no meals for the rest of the day. Finally, she left while cursing. After the adults left, the children who were standing far away walked over and looked at Chiwen in admiration. They were wearing a warm and patchless shirt. Chiwen, where did you get this shirt? Did someone give it to you? Chiwen said, yes. That's great. Chi Dakian also coveted the shirt when he saw it. However, they had just been beaten up by Chiwen and their bodies were still hurting. The other older children wanted to snatch the shirt, but they were beaten down in a few moves. Chi Dakian saw this from the side and shuddered. He immediately withdrew his restless thoughts. Chiwen's side finally quieted down. Only then did Daodu walk over to Chiwen. Chiwen, you're so awesome. Can you bring me along next time? I want new clothes too. Even if it was an old shirt that others did not want, it was still new to them. Chiwen stuffed a piece of candy into Daodu's mouth. It'll be better in the future. When he reunited with his parents, they would definitely help the orphanage when they saw how poor it was. These children would not have to suffer as much as before. Daodu tasted the sweetness in her mouth and smiled. Chiwen, you're so nice. Chiwen did not say anything. He also put a piece of candy into his mouth. Before he came back, he had basically used all the money in his pocket to buy candy. Since he did not have to go to the capital, he did not have to think of ways to save money. He did not have any close friends in the orphanage. Other than Daodu, everyone else was indifferent. Chiwen touched the candy in his pocket and thought for a while. In the end, he put a piece of candy on each of the children's beds. Perhaps Chiwen's image yesterday had left a deep impression on the residents nearby. The old grandma organized a few of her old sisters and went door to door to ask for some children's old clothes and extra quilts at home. Then, they sent them all to the orphanage. Now, all of them had new clothes to wear. Because of the large amount of donations, each child was given 2 sets. Chiwen already had 1 set, so this time, he was only given 1 set. They did not envy Chiwen anymore. They also had new clothes. Everyone was in high spirits. Chiwen looked at these children and was infected by their simple happiness. His mood also relaxed a little. Chiwen sat on the threshold of the orphanage's gate and looked out with his chin in his hand. When would Uncle Yuan come? He wondered if he would be able to see his father. A dream of golden millet for Yuan Xian had already arrived at the address given by the caller. On the way there, he calmed down his feverish mind. Yuan Xian thought a lot and realized that there were many illogical points. Based on the voice on the other end, the child was probably a few years old. How did he know his private number? Public figures like them always had 2 numbers. One was for work and the other was for personal use. Only those close to them would know. Therefore, there must be someone behind this child. Yuan Xian came up with a bunch of conspiracy theories. When he arrived at his destination, he did not go to the orphanage immediately. Instead, he stayed at a nearby hotel and used his connections to investigate. That night, the information about the orphanage, especially the child named Chiwen, came out. The information was very normal. The child was abandoned in the orphanage when he was less than a year old. He was 5 or 6 years old this year and had never left the orphanage. He lived a simple life and had never met any strangers. The only time he went out was on the day of the call. He ran to the center of the county alone. Xianxia could not figure out what was going on with this child who had suddenly appeared. In the end, he decided to meet the child personally. Perhaps everything would be answered after meeting him. Therefore, in Wen's anticipation, Xianxia appeared at the dilapidated orphanage. The director personally received Xianxia and his group. He was in fear and trepidation, and his expression was cautious and nervous. The orphanage had never had a donation inspection team. Moreover, the other party had come so suddenly that he did not inform them in advance. The director did not know how to welcome them. However, he thought that if they could invest in the orphanage, their lives would be better. Therefore, the director said fawningly, "Sir, do you want to see the children?" Wen had just left for a while today and did not wait at the door. He did not expect Xianxia to come at this time. Wen dug out all his money and kept it with him. Just as he was walking back, he saw Dauda running over excitedly. "Wen, come back with me quickly. There's a big shot in the orphanage." When Wen heard this, he immediately quickened his pace. He thought happily, "It's finally here." Dauda followed beside Wen and ran quickly with his short legs. "I wonder if the big shot will adopt us." Dauda vaguely remembered that he once had a home. His heart was filled with hope that he could be adopted and have a new home. Wen didn't say anything. He knew that Dauda would be adopted soon, so his wish had been fulfilled. Wen returned to the orphanage and saw Xianxia standing in the courtyard. She felt very close to him and immediately pounced on him, hugging his thigh. "Uncle Yuan." Without any introduction, Xianxia knew that this child was the Wen who had called him. Xianxia had already seen his photo, but it was far less shocking than seeing it with his own eyes. He knew that this child was thin, but he didn't expect him to be so small. According to the information, he was already 6 years old, but his height was about the same as a 3 or 4-year-old child. His body was so thin that there was no flesh at all. His exposed skin was just skin and bones. Because his body was thin, his head looked relatively large. His large eyes, coupled with his refugee appearance, made him look a little scary. Xianxia's body stiffened and he did not dare to move, nor did he dare to pull the child away. That skinny little black hand, he was afraid that it would break if he pulled. "Wen, what are you doing? Hurry up and let go of Mr. Yuan." Seeing that Wen was so offensive to the guest, the director's face darkened and she hurriedly reprimanded him, afraid that the guest would be angry. Seeing this, Xianxia frowned slightly. Then he said with a cold face, "It's okay. I came here to find this child. Can I talk to him alone?" "Yes, of course." The director hesitated and nodded repeatedly. She looked at Wen and signaled for him to be sweet with his words. Thus, under the envious gazes of the other children, Wen brought Xianxia to the room where they slept. From afar, they could hear the director's voice. "Stay here obediently. Don't run around." The orphanage didn't have any place to entertain guests. The canteen was very run down. Wen thought about it and brought them back to the dormitory. "Uncle Yuan, please sit." Wen asked Xianxia to sit beside his bed. Xianxia carefully looked at the furnishings in the room. There were densely packed iron frames and beds. There wasn't much space for people to stand. It was cramped and old. Xianxia didn't know there was such a rundown orphanage. He had done charity work in the past and had been to many orphanages. However, those orphanages were much better than this one. At least there was a playground in the yard and the children weren't as skinny as African refugees. Xianxia looked at the child. The child's abnormally large eyes were sparkling. It was pure joy for him. Xianxia's voice unconsciously became much gentler. He asked Wen to sit down and began to talk. "Child, who gave you my phone number? Who taught you to speak like this? Why did you tell uncle?" Wen knew his experience was legendary and ridiculous. If he said it directly, Uncle Yuan wouldn't believe him. Uncle Yuan might even think that his brain was damaged. Thus, Wen said, "I am indeed Cuyu's son. If you don't believe me, I can do a paternity test." Wen was confident. No matter how many excuses he came up with, it would be hard for people to believe him. He might as well tell the truth. A paternity test? Although Yuan Xian thought it was ridiculous, it was still a solution. He carefully observed the child's face. Although he was sallow and skinny, he could still see that his bone structure was very good. It was said that beauty was in the bones and not in the skin. This child would definitely grow up to be a handsome man. However, Yuan Xian couldn't find any similarities between his facial features and Ciyu's. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the child's mannerisms were somewhat similar to Ciyu's. As soon as he had this thought, Yuan Xian couldn't help but pat his own head. He felt that he had been possessed. Chiwen tilted his head and looked at him in confusion. It was as if he didn't understand why he had to pat himself. Yuan Xian said, "I can't make this decision." He felt that it was better to let Ciyu resolve this matter himself. Although he didn't think it was possible, what if? Chiwen nodded to show that he understood. "Uncle Yuan, can you help me find my mother first?" "You remember your mother?" Yuan Xian was surprised. If his information wasn't wrong, this child had been sent to the orphanage before he could remember anything. How could he know? Could it be that the mastermind had told him? Chiwen nodded and said, "My mother's name is Fu Yunrua. She's from the Fu family in the capital." He remembered his mother's background very clearly. Yuan Xian was speechless. If he remembered correctly, Fu Yunrua was no longer around. Furthermore, the Fu family had changed their surname to Feng. This incident had caused quite a stir in the capital back then because it involved the popular actress, Feng Shuirua. He knew more than the average person. If this child was really Fu Yunrua's child, Yuan Xian controlled himself from showing a sympathetic expression. He couldn't bear to tell the truth, so he said, "I'll have to check it out." Chiwen nodded repeatedly. "Thank you, Uncle Yuan." Yuan Xian rubbed Chiwen's head and didn't say anything. He didn't remember Ciyu and Fu Yunrua having any interactions. However, on second thought, Ciyu didn't like Feng Shuirua. Perhaps she had a relationship with Fu Yunrua before he knew about it. That was why she had such a problem with Feng Shuirua. When Yuan Xian thought about how Ciyu never hid her opinions about Feng Shuirua, he was even more convinced that he should talk to Ciyu. After talking to the child, not only did he not get any answers to his doubts, but he also had more doubts. After Yuan Xian left the orphanage, he immediately called Ciyu. The call went through quickly. A cold and lazy deep voice came through. "How long have we been apart? You can't bear to part with me already?" Yuan Xian snorted. "What are you talking about? I have something important to talk to you about." "Oh, what is it? Tell me honestly. When you were in the country, did you have an indescribable experience with any woman?" Yuan Xian ignored the silence on the other end and dropped a bomb. "You seem to have an illegitimate child. I don't care if you're telling the truth or not. Anyway, come over when you have time." Yuan Xian simply told Ciyu how the child had come to find him, how he had insisted that he was his son, and all the strange things that had happened. Ciyu listened to the last part and became interested. "Okay, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be waiting then." After Yuan Xian and his group left, the orphanage regained its silence. The children were envious and jealous of Chiwen for being able to talk to a noble in private. Daodu asked enviously, "Chiwen, is that noble going to adopt you?" "That's great. You'll have a good life in the future." Chiwen shook his head but didn't explain anything. After the DNA test, his father would definitely take him away and he wouldn't be in the orphanage anymore. The other children completely isolated Chiwen. They were jealous of Chiwen's good luck. Chiwen didn't care about these childish tricks. He waited patiently for his father's arrival. He knew that his father would definitely come. It was just that the days of waiting were hard to bear. Finally, on the morning of the third day, Yuan Xian appeared at the orphanage again. At the same time, there were a few more people. A tall man in a thin black trench coat and sunglasses stood beside Yuan Xian. Chiwen could tell at a glance that he was a little excited. However, this time, he didn't rush over to greet him. The head of the orphanage didn't chase after celebrities, let alone the other children who didn't even watch television. However, the head of the orphanage had seen Siyu's poster outside. However, Siyu had been out of the entertainment industry for many years and there had been no news of him for many years. Hence, the head of the orphanage only thought that he looked familiar and didn't recognize him. Yuan Xian spoke to the head of the orphanage privately and prepared to take Chiwen for a DNA test. He also made up a story to explain to the head of the orphanage that Chiwen might be an old friend. After searching for a long time, they finally found this place and wanted to go to the hospital for a DNA test. The head of the orphanage naturally hoped that Chiwen's relatives had found them and was very willing to let them do the DNA test. He also hoped that they were really Chiwen's relatives. This way, Chiwen's life would at least be better than in the orphanage. While Yuan Xian was talking to the head of the orphanage, Siyu stood in front of the obviously stunted child and bent over to observe him. Chiwen also looked up at him. After a while, he felt that his neck was sore and said, "Dad, can you lower your head a little?" Siyu raised his eyebrows. How natural it was for him to call him Dad. He bent over, put his hands on the child's waist and lifted him up. He was so light that it was as if he was weightless. The child was so thin that he didn't have much flesh. His palms were all bones. The only thing that could be considered eye-catching was a pair of big black eyes. However, on this sallow and thin face that was sunken, it looked a little strange. So ugly. How could this be his son? Chiwen puffed up his face in dissatisfaction. However, even if he puffed up his face, he couldn't puff up the baby fat. He snorted at Siyu. In the past, he was clearly called a little cutie. He had only lost a little weight, but now he was called ugly. Humph. Hey, he had a little temper. However, after seeing this face for so long, it was still cute and ugly. While the two of them were glaring at each other, Yuan Xian had already finished talking to the head of the orphanage. He walked over and said to Siyu, "Let's go. We've already agreed." Siyu carried the child with one hand and walked out with him. Siyu lowered his head and saw that the child was well behaved and didn't make a fuss. After he got into the car, he smiled and said, "Aren't you afraid that we'll sell you?" Chiwen wasn't afraid at all. He sat in the car very comfortably. The car drove for more than 3 hours and finally stopped at a hospital in the city. Not long after they entered, there were doctors who specially guided them to the hospital. Siyu had already arranged everything when he came over. He had also brought along a team of doctors he trusted and advanced identification equipment. The identification process, from the sampling to the results, was handled by his people. Furthermore, there were cameras recording the entire process to ensure that the results were correct. No matter how fast the identification process was, it would take at least 2 hours for the results to be out. Siyu saw that it was already noon, so he said that they would go for lunch first. Naturally, they didn't have any objections. The group of them went to a high-end restaurant in the city. Chiwen hadn't eaten meat in a long time. When he saw the delicious meat on the table, he swallowed his saliva and reached out with his chopsticks to pick it up. However, he was stopped. Siyu said, "Little guy, those are yours." Chiwen followed Siyu's gaze and saw that they were all light and easy to digest children's meals. Furthermore, the pitiful amount of meat was all shredded meat. Chiwen was speechless. Yuan Xian pitied him. To prevent any misunderstandings, he explained, "You haven't eaten meat in a long time. If you suddenly eat meat, your body won't be able to take it." Given his small stature, he probably didn't even have enough to eat, let alone meat. What a poor child. Chiwen pursed his lips, feeling wronged. However, he knew that this was the truth, so he obediently ate his children's meal. After lunch, they set off for the hospital. Sitting in the car, Chiwen was so sleepy that he was nodding off. He hadn't slept well for the past 2 nights because he had been waiting for Siyu and the rest to arrive. He yawned and climbed onto Siyu's body. He sat in his arms, grabbed his clothes, and snuggled up against him. Then, he fell asleep peacefully. Siyu didn't reject him the entire time. He only held the child firmly with one hand when he was lying on his body. Yuan Xian, who was in the front passenger seat, turned his head and looked at Siyu in astonishment. When he saw that the child had fallen asleep, he asked softly, "Is this really your son?" He had never seen Siyu so patient. It seemed as though Siyu had been very tolerant of this child from the first time they met. Could it be the nature of father and son? Siyu lowered his head and looked at the child. He simply said, "He's fated." Initially, he had only been interested in the child because of what Xianxia had said. However, now that he had met the child, he realized that his little bit of patience had been wasted on him. Even though the child looked dirty and ugly, he surprisingly didn't reject Siyu's closeness. When Siyu arrived at the hospital, he had already investigated everything about the child from before he was born. He was well aware that this child wasn't his. However, he still did a paternity test with the child. He didn't find out who had told the child that he was his father. If there was a conspiracy behind his back, he would definitely have tampered with the report. The mastermind had crossed the line by using an innocent child. He definitely wouldn't let him off. When they returned to the hospital, a doctor in a white coat and a mask came over with a paternity test report. "Sir, the results are out." When Xianxia saw that Siyu didn't take it, he took it from him. "I'll open it and take a look." Xianxia opened the envelope and took out the report. When he saw the results, he realized that they weren't related by blood. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief and said to Siyu, "They aren't related by blood." He knew that Siyu, who was obsessed with cleanliness, couldn't possibly have a child with a woman. Then, he felt that it was a pity. Actually, it would be quite good if it was true. Siyu wasn't young anymore and wasn't married. It would be good to have a son. Siyu took the report and glanced at it. His expression didn't change. It was obvious that he wasn't surprised by the results. At this moment, Chi-Wen, who had been sleeping, suddenly woke up with a start. He lifted his head from Siyu's embrace and rubbed his eyes. When he saw that Siyu was holding a few pieces of paper, he instantly woke up. "The report is out? A dream of golden millet 5. Chi-Wen thought to himself, "Do they believe me now?" He looked at the document, but from his angle, he couldn't see what was written on it. "The results are out," Siyu replied and told him the results. "We are not related by blood." "What?" Chi-Wen, who had just been happy, turned to look at Siyu in disbelief. "Impossible." Siyu raised his brows. "How can you be so sure that I'm your father?" Chi-Wen was still in shock and didn't answer Siyu's question. He was in a daze and thought that he had heard wrongly. How could this be? He wasn't his father's child? Then why were the results different when they were tested previously? Could it be that his biological father in both lifetimes was different? Chi-Wen reached out for the document. "Let me see." Siyu didn't ask this little fellow who hadn't gone to school whether he could understand it or not. He cooperated and passed the document to him. Chi-Wen's eyes widened when he saw the results of the test. The document fell from his hands. Chi-Wen's thoughts were in a mess. How could this be? Why were the two reports different? Chi-Wen couldn't help but wonder if his father had faked the test because he liked his mother so that he could integrate into the C family. No, that was impossible. Chi-Wen couldn't face Siyu for a moment. He struggled to get off the ground, wanting to leave Siyu's line of sight. He wanted to be alone and figure out what was going on. However, his little strength was like a mosquito in Siyu's hands. He didn't move an inch and left the hospital with Chi-Wen in his arms. Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief as he walked out with Siyu. "Since the matter has come to an end, Siyu, Xianxia wanted to say something, but when he saw how the child looked like he had suffered a blow, he understood how much the child in the orphanage yearned to find his biological parents. He cursed the person behind the scenes 1,000 times in his heart. That person was too heartless to actually use such a child. Xianxia had always believed that there was someone behind this. He wanted to say that since the results were clear, they should send the child back. However, he couldn't bring himself to say it in front of the child. Chi-Wen couldn't break free from Siyu's arms. He curled up into a ball and sunk into despair. He had already accepted his past, but now he was being told that the truth he believed it to be false. What was going on? Chi-Wen was immersed in his own world. By the time he snapped out of it, he was already in the car. Chi-Wen thought gloomily. Were they going to send him back to the orphanage? Chi-Wen's expression was gloomy. He thought about the novels he had read. After he got his phone and computer. Because of his own experience, he was very interested in novels about transmigration and reincarnation. He had read a few of them, and one of them was about him being reborn in a parallel world. Jiwon felt that he had transmigrated to a parallel world. No, it should be the parallel world where he had his mother. The current situation was what he should have experienced. Jiwon thought of the reason why the two of them were different. It was probably because his mother had been reborn when she was pregnant with him. Perhaps that was why his biological father was different. Later on, she chose to hide her identity. After that, her life went on a different path. In this life, Jiwon had already thought of some possibilities, but he was still unwilling to accept it. Dad. Uncle, can you help me find my mother? Jiwon was now a child with nothing. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack for him to find his mother. With his current abilities, he couldn't find her at all. He could only ask for help. The only people he could ask for help were Siyu and the rest. Jiwon didn't know if they would help him, but there was still hope. Uncle, if you help me find my mother, I will repay you in the future. Siyu had already found out about the child's past, so he naturally knew who his biological mother was. She was no longer around, so he couldn't make another one appear. He patted the child's head and made up a white lie. I'm sorry, we can't find your mother either. Maybe we can find her when you grow up. Jiwon understood the hidden meaning behind his words. With the C family's abilities, how could they not find his mother? Furthermore, he had provided his mother's name. Siyu's words meant that. Jiwon lowered his head as big drops of tears rolled down his cheeks. Jiwon cried extremely sadly. He didn't understand. He had clearly lived a good life, but in the end, he fell asleep. His father was no longer his father, and his mother was no longer around. He didn't want to stay here. Could he still go back? At the thought of being separated from his mother forever, Jiwon couldn't control his emotions. In the end, he cried until he fainted. When Jiwon woke up, he was still a little dizzy. It took him a long time to gather his thoughts. He thought that he had been sent back to the orphanage, but when he looked around, he realized that he was in an unfamiliar environment. It took him a moment to recognize that he was in a hotel suite. Jiwon sat up. After a long time, he got out of bed. He had just opened the door to the room when he heard voices outside. Jiwon heard that they were talking about him. When he heard the word adoption, he was stunned. Outside the room, Siyu and Yuan Xian were discussing the child's arrangements. Yuan Xian originally thought that after the truth was revealed, Siyu would go back. He didn't expect that he would throw another bomb at him. He wanted to adopt this child. Yuan Xian was about to go bald. It wasn't easy for the two of them to part ways, but he still had to worry about him. What was this called? If the head of the C family adopted an unrelated child, it would cause a storm in the C family. Furthermore, if Siyu got married and had a child of his own in the future. Yuan Xian didn't agree, but he couldn't influence Siyu's decision. He could only persuade him earnestly, even if you like this child, are you sure adopting him is the best for him? Will your family agree? Yuan Xian didn't know where Siyu got this idea from. Although this child was really lovable and pitiful, Siyu didn't think about his own identity. Not to mention whether it would affect his own son in the future, it would be difficult to explain to the C family. Even if he adopted him, how would the C family be willing to adopt an orphan who was unrelated to the C family? It was such a big family business. If he was an unrelated heir, would he be able to hold on to it? Yuan Xian could imagine what would happen to the child. Why don't we find a good family? Furthermore, there were still some doubts about the child's identity. Who was the one who contacted them? They still hadn't found out who it was. It couldn't be that the child dreamed of it, right? If there's no other way, I can adopt him. In any case, he quite liked this child. Siyu said, this child is to my liking. He had seen many children before, but this child made him want to adopt him. Based on this point alone, Siyu didn't need to investigate the child's abnormality. His instincts wouldn't be wrong. Yuan Xian wanted to persuade him again, but Siyu didn't say much. He sharply noticed movement in the room and turned his head to look. Siyu waved his hand and motioned for him to come over. Jiwon met Siyu's gaze and opened the door to walk out. He still looked depressed. Are you hungry? Siyu's voice was gentle. Chiwen lowered his head. Sorry. He didn't mean to eavesdrop. Siyu didn't mind. Do you have any ideas? What ideas? Chiwen reacted quickly. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Uncle, do you really want to adopt me? Chiwen didn't feel safe in this world. Even though he wasn't Siyu's biological father in this life, he still wanted to be by Siyu's side. Of course. So what about you? Are you willing to be my son? Chiwen nodded hurriedly. His tears almost flowed out again. He went forward and hugged Siyu. I'm willing. He suddenly felt at ease. The uneasiness of returning to this world dissipated. Chiwen thought that if his father didn't want him, he wouldn't have the courage to continue living alone. Seeing this, Yuan Xian didn't say anything else to persuade him. Siyu had already made up his mind. He couldn't persuade him. Forget it. He couldn't be bothered to poke his nose into other people's business. Since Siyu had made this decision, he must have thought of a way to deal with it. After that, Yuan Xian went to the orphanage a few times to settle the adoption procedures for Bang Siyue. He also made use of his connections to send the children from the orphanage to a proper orphanage in the city. This orphanage didn't have any proper procedures. Initially, it was adopted by a kind-hearted person. Since the surrounding residents didn't know about this or didn't pay much attention to it, this orphanage had been around for many years. Yuan Xian saw that the children in the orphanage were all skinny. It was obvious that they hadn't taken good care of them. Chiwen complained to them that the cooks in the orphanage weren't good. Yuan Xian dealt with them one by one. They donated a large sum of money to the orphanage in the city. After observing for a while, they let it go when they saw that they were adapting well. As for Chiwen, other than going back to the orphanage once to say goodbye to the former head of the orphanage and the other children, he followed Siyu back to the Xi residence. When he first came to the Xi family's main residence, he was warmly welcomed by everyone in the Xi family as Siyu's biological son. This time, he stood here again as an adopted son, but most of the people in the Xi family were unfamiliar with him and didn't treat him warmly. He had mixed feelings. However, Chiwen wasn't afraid. He believed that even if he wasn't a child of the Xi family in this life, he would be able to gain their recognition again. Siyu saw that Sichin wasn't petty at all. He handled things generously and even inherited some of his teachings. He was pleasantly surprised and satisfied. Chiwen successfully entered the Xi family's genealogy book and changed his name to Sichin, the same name he had in his previous life. Soon, Siyu's parents also accepted Chiwen. He could feel that their love for him was no less than in his previous life. He was very satisfied. The attitudes of the three most important people in the Xi family naturally influenced the attitudes of the people below them. Chiwen grew up under the care and nurturing of the Xi family. When he was 16 years old, he set up his own company and did a few beautiful projects. The scale of the company expanded at a rocket speed. In just a few years, Chiwen became an upstart in the business world that couldn't be ignored. Who didn't praise the younger generation? The collateral branch of the Xi family was convinced and completely acknowledged Chiwen's position as the successor. When Chiwen was 18 years old, Siyu told him about his past. In this life, Sichin personally buried the Chang family and the Feng family, taking revenge for 2 lifetimes. Even if Chiwen didn't rely on the Xi family, the company he ran in this life was more than twice the size of the one in his previous life. He wasn't afraid of the Chang family and the Feng family at all. Even the family of Chang Shuai's fiancé, whom he hated the most, went bankrupt because they had plotted against him many times in his previous life. However, he wasn't as wicked as them. He wouldn't touch unrelated people. He wouldn't be like them, who wouldn't let go of anyone who was close to him. Sichin saw with his own eyes what happened to those people. They couldn't make a comeback. His heart was relieved, but he missed the other life even more. He often dreamed of it. Chiwen opened his eyes again. He was in a daze for a moment. He dreamed of his mother again. He hoped that his family in the parallel world was still living well. Chiwen looked at the ceiling for a while. After a long time, he got out of bed. Eh? Why did the room feel so much higher? Chiwen didn't think too much. He went into the bathroom and prepared to brush his teeth. Then, he looked up and saw a young boy's face in the mirror. He looked like he was 13 or 14 years old. There was still some baby fat on his face. Jiwon looked at the person in the mirror in a daze. He didn't even dare to blink, afraid that it was an illusion. He was reborn again? Or, he was back? Jiwon threw his toothbrush, turned around, and ran out. As he ran too fast, he slipped and almost fell, but it didn't slow him down. Jiwon ran downstairs and saw the person he had dreamed of countless times appear in front of him. Fuyun was helping to bring out breakfast from the kitchen. When she saw Wenwen acting so rashly, she couldn't help but say, "Why are you running? Aren't you afraid of falling?" Jiwon blinked and blinked again. Then, he rushed forward, hugged Fuyun, and cried, "Mother, it's Mother!" Fuyun saw that Wenwen's emotions were not right. She quickly patted his back. "What's wrong? Who bullied you? Tell Mother, Mother will help you." "Mother!" Wenwen cried. Fuyun heard the attachment and grievance in his tone, so she quickly coaxed him. "Did you have a nightmare? Don't be afraid, Mother is here." Ever since Wenwen was over 10 years old, he rarely acted coquettishly with her. Fuyun's heart softened and she quickly coaxed him. "Good boy, don't be afraid, Mother is here. You're not young anymore, but you're still clinging to Mother like a child who hasn't been weaned off milk." Siyu heard the commotion and saw her son hugging his wife coquettishly. She grabbed the back of his collar and pulled him back in disdain. Wenwen looked up at Siyu with teary eyes. She still had that look of disdain on her face, so he turned around and hugged Siyu. He was finally back. Siyu saw that her son was suddenly so close to her. She didn't care about her face anymore and patted his tender shoulder. "You're a man. It's just a nightmare. What are you afraid of?" "That's because the dream was too real and too scary," Wenwen thought to himself. Wenwen took a while to control his emotions. Suddenly, his trousers tightened. Wenwen lowered his head to take a look. A 2 to 3-year-old pink dumpling with goat horn braids who looked like Siyu hugged his knees and looked up at him. He heard the pink dumpling say softly, "Big brother, don't cry, little sister will beat you bad." Wenwen immediately smiled and bent over to hug the girl. Little sister is the best." 8. After growing up, the social media platform, which had been calm for half a month, stirred up 1,000 waves after a fan posted an edited video. In the video, a little fairy-like child raised a sword and flew through the air. The moment he landed and looked back, he turned into a beautiful young man holding a sword. After a sword dance, he turned into a romantic and elegant chivalrous man. His lips curled into a smile, and his style was peerless. There were only 3 transitions and the connection was natural and smooth. The video, which was less than a minute long, was forwarded more than 10,000 times and continued to rise in popularity. In the blink of an eye, it was trending. "He grew up, he came with the wind and stepped into my heart melted when he smiled. He lived up to expectations and grew up to be the best. Why are you suddenly tearing up? Tearful +1, tearful +2, tearful +10,086, Fuyun could be said to be the only child that the whole world looked forward to when he grew up. It could also be said that he was raised by hundreds of millions of fans. When he was young, he didn't act in many dramas, but every one of them was excellent and was still a classic. He was recognized as the #1 child star. When he was 10 years old, Fuyun acted as the male lead in a movie and became the youngest actor to win the award. After that, he disappeared from the entertainment industry. Many years later, he suddenly appeared in a Xianxia drama and instantly caused a stir in China. Their child had grown up. After that, Fuyun began to appear frequently on the big screen. His stage wasn't just in China, but the whole world. He really returned to the peak, and it was only the peak of a mountain. After that, his achievements became higher and higher. Before he was 25 years old, he had won all the awards that Siyu had won. He perfectly explained what it meant to be better than the master. However, even though he was quite famous internationally, his big stage was still in China. Xijing was doing a variety show for the selection of a girl group. In order to show his support, he agreed to be the mentor of the last episode of the show. Because of his arrival, the popularity of the show soared several times. Fu Wen was accompanied by the director to his exclusive dressing room. Just as they turned the corner of the corridor, a person suddenly walked out and coincidentally bumped into Fu Wen. The director and assistants first checked to see if Fu Wen had been hit. When the director saw that it was a girl dressed in a girl group's uniform, his face immediately turned stiff. "Why are you so careless? Don't you look at the road when you're walking?" I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." A delicate and timid voice sounded. The delicate and pretty young woman was like a frightened deer. When the others saw her like this, they couldn't bear to scold her no matter how angry they were. The director's voice was not so strict. "Be careful next time." Fu Wen lowered his head and saw that it was Xianxia, his nemesis whom he had hated for many years. In this life, she did not have a strong background and was no longer the female lead as soon as she debuted. Xianxia, who was only 18 years old, finally entered the entertainment industry and participated in the most popular girl group selection. Perhaps she did have some luck in the entertainment industry. Without Fu Wen's interference, she still entered the top 3 of the competition. The mother and daughter of the Fang family and the Chang family had disappeared from the public eye. After the Chang family went bankrupt, the family fled the capital in a sorry state. After Fang Shui gave birth to her daughter, she also left. The parents of the Chang family had nothing left. At first, they pushed all the blame onto Fang Shui. Before she could properly go through her confinement period, she was ordered to do this and that and suffered all kinds of torture. Chang Zhuyu drank dispiritedly and could not recover from this setback. Later, Chang Zhuyu suddenly came to his senses when he heard his daughter's tender cries. However, there were too many people near the capital who kicked him when he was down. They moved again and finally settled down in a remote city in the south. However, it was impossible for them to live a life of luxury like before. Father Chang's health was not good, and Mother Chang was always complaining and wishful thinking of going back to the old days. Fang Shui also went out to work. Not long after, the boss of the place where she worked took a liking to her. In order to live a better life, she resolutely divorced and became an old man's mistress. Chang Zhuyu was greatly affected and could not recover from this setback. He either smoked or drank. Mother Chang cried, and in order to not starve to death, she could only rely on garbage collection to survive. The family lived in a dilapidated village in the city for more than 10 years. Chang Shui grew up in such an environment. She lived in a dilapidated house and had endless chores to do every day. Occasionally, she would be scolded and beaten by her father and grandmother. She always felt that she should not live such a life and wanted to be outstanding. Her only advantage was that she had a pretty face, so she plunged headfirst into the entertainment industry. After Fu Wen found out that Chang Shui was also in the show, he hesitated whether he should make a move. However, after some consideration, he realized that there was a huge difference between their statuses. If he paid attention to her, he would be giving her face. He did not want to have any black marks on his reputation because of her. Therefore, he decided not to do anything for the time being. He was only here to be a judge for the sake of his company. Originally, he thought that if she did not provoke him, he would not do anything on purpose. However, he did not expect that she would bump into him as soon as he arrived at the studio. Fu Wen thought that she must be very confident in herself to use such a despicable method to attract his attention. Fu Wen looked away and walked past her. He said to the director, "Uncle, I'm only here to be a judge. I don't want to be disturbed by random people. Also, if my record of 0 scandals is broken here, my uncle Yuan will have to talk to you." How could the director not understand what he meant? He immediately said, "Don't worry. During the recording, I won't let any shady people get close to you." The director knew that Fu Wen's charm and fame were a huge temptation to those who wanted to take the shortcut. Even if they weren't fancied, even if they weren't trying to ride on his popularity, just being in his eyes and being promoted by him would be a step to the sky for these female members who had yet to officially debut. The director understood what had just happened and immediately promised. Chang Shui wanted to take the opportunity to say a few words to Fu Wen, but the other party did not even look at her. There were also several assistants guarding her tightly, staring at her and not letting her get close. The assistants thought that they had been by President Fu's side all these years and had seen many men and women show off their abilities. If they wanted to get close to President Fu, this female member's methods were the lowest, so they could not be careless. President Fu's integrity depended on them. Nothing happened during the livestream of the finals. Even the host was on guard. Before Xianxia could say anything related to Fu Wen, he stopped her from saying anything and naturally moved on to the next person. However, this Xianxia obviously did not give up because of this. She got 5th place in the finals, falling from 2nd place. In the end, she still tried to pull Fu Wen down in public. She felt very wronged in her words. Her ranking should not have been so low. The moment this trending topic appeared, it poked a hornet's nest. A group of mother, father, and sibling fans who were protective of their child mocked her to the bottom of the mud. How dare any Tom, Dick, and Harry try to scam their child? Did they ask for their opinion? It was not like they did not have eyes to watch the finals. The people who were ranked at the bottom had performed very amazingly in the finals. It was normal for their rankings to rise. If they did not rise, they would suspect that there was a conspiracy. They were not blind. This was more than just a scam. She was simply not afraid of death. She had crossed Mount Everest to scam their child. Under the continuous manipulation of Xianxia and her brainless fans, the stars were furious. They directly slapped her into the dust and never let her rise again. Fu Wen's fans had a unified name, Stars. Firstly, it was because Siyu's fans were called Moon, and Fu Yun's fans were called Clouds. As their son, Fu Wen's fans voted to become stars. The sky was full of stars that would never die out. Apple Entertainment, who had wanted to sign the top 5 to form a girl group, directly hid Xianxia. After finding out about her background, they cut the Gordian knot and banned her completely. From then on, she disappeared. The 6th female member took the opportunity to fill in the gaps. The others were overjoyed. They felt that this was how it should be. Otherwise, if Xianxia was still around, this girl group would be ruined. Fu Wen, who had not given any hints, was speechless. He suspected that he had won the script in this lifetime. Fu Yunrua. Mom, it's the weekend tomorrow. Let's go to the amusement park. Fu Yunrua hugged her mother's neck and said coquettishly. You're really getting younger and younger. Are you 3 years old this year? Mr. Fu pulled a long face. Fu Yunrua ignored Father Fu. Her voice was as sweet as sugar. Mom Mrs. Fu could not stand her daughter's coquettishness. Go, go, go. Let's go together tomorrow. After getting a clear answer, Fu Yunrua looked at Mr. Fu and smiled proudly. Mr. Fu snorted and flicked the newspaper in his hand. Just let her be. Let's see what she's become. Don't worry about your father. He's just stubborn. Actually, he's very happy, Mrs. Fu said dotingly. Ever since Fu Yunrua fell seriously ill half a year ago, they were scared out of their wits. The 2 of them, as well as the 4 of them, had been taking care of Fu Yunrua almost 24 hours a day, exhausting all their time and energy. It took them half a year to bring her back. This also made them realize that they had neglected their daughter because they valued their work too much in the past. After that, they reduced their working hours and were not as hardworking as before. Perhaps it was because they were older that they paid more attention to their family. Perhaps it was because she felt her parents' intention to compensate her that their daughter, who did not like to act coquettishly with them, gradually became lively. After carefully approaching them time and time again and realizing their indulgence, she began to have no scruples and really became a delicate girl. Although Mr. Fu said that he disliked Fu Yunrua, he actually enjoyed his daughter's coquettishness and had a little temper. Early the next morning, Fu Yunrua had not woken up when someone knocked on the door. Yun, wake up. Fu Yunrua turned around and wanted to laze in bed, but she heard someone outside the door. Didn't you say that you were going to the amusement park today? The amusement park. Fu Yunrua was instantly jolted awake. She narrowed her eyes and got up from the bed. I'm up. Fu Yunrua quickly brushed her teeth and washed her face. She tied her hair into a bun and came out in casual clothes. Mr. Fu said, You lazy brat, you still said that you're going to play? Fu Yun made a face at Father Fu, then sat at the dining table and started eating breakfast. I'm not late, humph. Look, you can't even talk about it now. Stop talking, Mrs. Fu said helplessly. Mr. and Mrs. Fu also sat at the dining table and began to eat breakfast. They had also changed into loose casual clothes and were ready to go out. After breakfast, the family set off for the amusement park. The amusement park was very lively. Most of the people there were adults with children in their teens or young men and women. It was rare to see parents like Mr. and Mrs. Fu bringing their children out to play. Fu Yun did not mind at all. She held her mother's left hand and her father's right hand. She looked around excitedly. The amusement park was so lively. If Fu Yun saw a project that she was interested in, she would go and try it out. Some projects were more exciting, but Mr. and Mrs. Fu were old and could not take the excitement, so they watched her play by the side. Father Fu had a camera around his neck and he took photos of Fu Yun and Mother Fu from time to time. Mr. and Mrs. Fu would join in on some of the more casual activities. The Yun family played at the amusement park for a day, but they did not finish all the projects. However, Fu Yun was satisfied. She had already played all the projects she wanted to play. They had a big meal outside and quickly fell asleep when they returned home. The next day, they did not go too far away. Instead, they had a picnic in a nearby park. Their days were ordinary but rich. Not long after, her grandparents, who lived in the countryside, called and said that they would be coming over. They would bring Fu Yun's favorite sweet corn and fresh peanuts. Fu Yun was extremely happy. If her grandparents had not said that they could hitch a ride into the city, she would have gone to the countryside personally. Every time her grandparents entered the city, they would bring big bags of all kinds of agricultural products and pickled products. They could eat them for a month. Grandpa Fu and Grandma Fu were in their early 70s, but their bodies were still very healthy. They spoke with full energy and walked as if they were flying. Fu Yun once again enjoyed the love of her grandparents. They fed her all kinds of delicious meals every day. She drove her grandparents around to play every day. Father and Mother Fu, who were still at work, were jealous. Once her grandparents came, their daughter forgot about her parents. Grandma Fu wanted to go to a temple in the city with a lot of incense to return a wish and ask about her granddaughter's marriage fate. They did not worry about anything else. They were only worried about their granddaughter's health and when she would find a partner. Fu Yun felt that she was still a baby and did not want to find a partner at all. However, she heard that the temple there was quite efficacious. She was prepared to pray and make a wish, hoping that the other Fu Yun would also be able to live a comfortable life without worrying about anything. Fu Yun was extremely satisfied. Although these days were not luxurious and she did not come into contact with the upper class, she preferred this kind of life. No one knew that this Fu Yun was not the Fu Yun of the past. She had the memories of another Fu Yun. She remembered that she had woken up in this world when she was feeling unwell and fainted. The Fu Yun of this world looked similar to her and had the same name. When she came over, the original Fu Yun was sick. At that time, she was washed away by the memories of the two worlds. In addition, her emotions were on the verge of collapse, so she was hospitalized for more than half a year. In the end, she walked out of the hospital under the meticulous care of her family. Fu Yun finally understood what kinship was in this world. She did not know why she was here, but she yearned for kinship too much. Sometimes, she felt that this was her. She had the memories of the past, so she felt at ease. Sometimes, she felt that she had taken over the nest and felt uneasy. Later on, she thought that perhaps the original body was like her and had taken over her body. They had swapped. Fu Yun thought of the Fu Yun in her memory. She had a soft temper and was not like her who would explode at the slightest provocation. In her world, she did not have a mother and her father did not love her. She also had a vicious stepmother and stepsister. How could she win? At least she could argue a few times. The original body had such a soft temper. Wouldn't she be bullied even more? Therefore, she prayed before she slept every day. The first thing she prayed when she woke up was that there was someone who was not afraid of the Chang family and the Fu family who could protect the original body. Her grandparents went to the temple to talk to the abbot. Fu Yun went to the temple hall and saw an empty cushion on the ground. She knelt on it and clasped her hands together devoutly as she prayed in her heart. If the gods could hear her, they must let the Fuyun of the other world live a good life. Someone would love her wholeheartedly, protect her, and not let her suffer any grievances. Fuyun prayed hundreds of times in her heart. She felt that if there were gods, they should be able to hear her. Only then did she open her eyes. She rubbed her numb legs. She had been kneeling for too long. She shifted her gaze inadvertently and saw a handsome man looking at her curiously. Fuyun only felt that he looked familiar, but she did not pay much attention to him. Instead, it was the man who spoke to her. Junior Fu? Fuyun looked at him and thought for a moment. Then, she found the man's information from the corner of her memory. Oh, it's a senior. What a coincidence. The original body was not familiar with this senior. They used to work in the same department. That was why they had spent some time together. But after the senior quit the club and graduated, they had never heard of each other again. The original body had an impression of him. It was mainly because he was the most handsome guy in the school. He was also a famous person in the school. Yes, what a coincidence. After a short pause, the senior could not help but ask, "Did you fall asleep just now?" At first, he thought that this woman looked familiar. His photographic memory allowed him to remember that she was his junior. He did not want to greet her at first, but he realized that she had been kneeling with her eyes closed. She did not get up for a long time. She looked like she had fallen asleep. His curiosity was piqued and he kept looking at her. He wanted to know when she would open her eyes. "Fuyun," she said unhappily. "I was praying." He almost could not hold back his laughter. What kind of wish could take so long? He had not seen this junior for a few years. She had changed a lot. Fuyun felt that this senior was mocking her again. Although she did not have any evidence, she did not want to talk to him anymore. So, she stood up and said quickly, "My grandparents are looking for me. Goodbye." The senior was surprised when he saw her running away without hesitation. He could not help but touch his face. Could it be that his face was no longer charming? She did not even want to talk to him anymore. Fuyun did not take this incident to heart. After burning some incense, she brought her grandparents to climb the mountain to enjoy the scenery. After that, she went home happily. One night, she dreamed that the original body was living a good life in her previous world. Someone was protecting her wholeheartedly. She was not hurt at all. She even had a son and a daughter. Fuyun did not feel so uneasy anymore. Since they could not switch back, they might as well live their own lives. She would be filial to her parents and her grandparents. End of chapter 143. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video to support the channel.